Here it comes. I've finally reached the final trial of the Thunder Burial Canyon. But I didn't expect the guardians of the final stage to be 3 world-class bosses. The Black Sky Demon King was frantically trying to neutralize the poisonous gas in the royal city. But in the end, even the Demon King, who is the best at manipulating poison elements, was completely powerless. Meanwhile, after the Succubus Queen learned about what happened at the Eternal Battlefield, she immediately ordered the Succubus Mina to stop hunting me. She knew very well that she was no longer a match for me. However, to complete the mission given to her by the Demon Emperor, she decisively spread the word that I was in the lower space. After all, many demons wanted to earn credit in front of the Demon Emperor. By this time, I had entered the 4th fork in the road, which could also be called the 4th stage of the 9 trials. Even though I have 80% lightning element immunity, my bone armor offered no resistance here and was torn apart by the lightning. The remaining damage was shared among all the members of my undead army. Luckily, I have enough skeletons, so the shared damage wasn't too significant. Previously, I only needed to rest every 2,000 meters. After passing through several stages, I finally figured out the scaling between each one. I thought this stage would be guarded by 4 level 83 elite monsters called Lightning Beasts, but I discovered that the Guardian here was actually a level 80 Lord-class boss. Its total attributes were as high as 2.9 million. Such a huge gap is enough for it to take on 4 normal Lightning Beasts alone. At this point, my skeleton berserkers seemed a bit weak before it. Every attack from the giant Lightning Beast sent a large number of skeleton berserkers flying. Plus, the Lich General's healing was fast enough. Every time they were blown back, they were fine and kept charging back to attack. In this way, tens of thousands of skeleton warriors used human wave tactics to pin down the lightning giant beast. Meanwhile, the skeleton archmages and sharpshooters focused their fire from the rear. Soon, the Thunderlight Colossus was beaten to the verge of death. Immediately after, its entire body began to glow. It was clearly preparing to use its self-destruct skill. But even the self-destruct of an ordinary Thunderlight beast is terrifying enough. God knows how devastating the power of this Lord-level boss will be. With such an exciting plot, watching it on a new tablet is pure bliss. So, I immediately led my Undead Legion to retreat. But it was too late for some of the skeleton berserkers that were too close to it. 2 seconds later, a blinding white light exploded within the passage. Instantly, everything within a 500-meter radius was swallowed by a vast white mist. Violent lightning continued to rage. The range was much larger than that of an ordinary Thunderlight beast's self-destruct, and the power was on a completely different level. A huge number of skeleton berserkers melted instantly in the lightning. Even though the undying aura resurrected them all, death struck once again in less than 0.1 seconds. Although this self-destruction cost me at least 3,000 skeleton berserkers. Fortunately, I've mastered the mechanics of the Thunderlight giant beast self-destruction. Now I can handle the upcoming stages with ease. I continued moving forward while replenishing my skeleton berserkers. I easily cleared the 5th and 6th stages. It wasn't until the 7th stage that my expression turned serious, because the one guarding this stage is likely a world-class boss. But to get what's inside the crystal, I resolutely stepped inside. The lightning attacks inside were already 3.8 times stronger than before. Every bolt of lightning would damage my Undead Legion. Attacks of this intensity would heavily wound even a level 80 knight. Even level 88 or 89 professionals wouldn't be able to clear all these stages. And based on what Antares said, things might get even more difficult after level 80. Just as I had walked nearly 2,000 meters, a massive, 30-meter-tall Thunderlight beast appeared before me. Its entire body was enveloped in terrifying lightning, looking as if a layer of liquid was flowing around its body. Seeing this, I immediately cast my Aging Curse skill. I also used detection at the same time. As it slowed down, its attribute panel appeared. I found it was a level 80 world-class boss, named the Thunderlight Divine Beast. Its total attributes reached 4.1 million. At this moment, the Aging Curse didn't seem to have much effect on it. It wasn't until my Frost Lich appeared that its speed finally slowed down again. But as the lightning on its body continuously erupted, the effects of the curse and freezing aura also began to slowly wear away. Moreover, with every step it took, it absorbed the lightning in the air to strengthen itself. So, I had to kill it as quickly as possible. Therefore, I decisively activated the primordial rune on the back of my hand. In an instant, the aura of the Undead Legion surged. Then, a burst of green light exploded on the lightning divine beast. With the support of the strengthening skill, the toxic starburst skill could deal nearly 190,000 damage per second. However, it could effectively suppress its recovery abilities. Next, I summoned all the elemental liches. Various auras shimmered on the skeletons. The next second, dense attacks exploded against the lightning divine beast. Especially the skills of the skeleton berserkers, which were incredibly brutal. After being bolstered by both the lich general and the strengthening skill, their strength attribute had reached a staggering 1.24 million. Combined with the 600% strength bonus from the berserk kill skill, a single strike was equivalent to over 8 million strength damage. This terrifying power instantly broke through the lightning divine beast's defense. It was immediately battered until its flesh was torn. If it weren't for its life enhancement trait, it might have already been instantly killed by the skeleton berserkers. Although the combat power of the skeleton berserkers dropped significantly after using their skills, the attacks from the skeleton archmages and skeleton sharpshooters could still deal considerable damage. In almost an instant, the lightning divine beast was heavily wounded. The next second, a massive amount of lightning orbs flooded the entire passage. Feeling the terrifying power contained within the lightning orbs, my hair stood on end. In an instant, both I and my undead army were swallowed by the lightning orbs. If the damage had been any stronger, my immortality aura would have automatically triggered. Dealing with just one lightning divine beast is already this difficult. Next, I'll have to face 2 or even 3 at the same time. And their skills are impossible to avoid. If I can't find a way, my life might be in serious danger. While I was thinking, dozens of healing spells landed on the Undead Legion simultaneously. In the blink of an eye, the skeleton's injuries were completely healed. Only 5 seconds had passed since I used the strengthening skill. The skeletons launched another attack on the lightning divine beast. Luckily, it didn't use that skill again until death arrived. But then, its aura began to become extremely unstable. I realized it was about to self-destruct. But since the Undead Legion was in combat mode, I couldn't recall them. So, I had no choice but to lead the skeletons in a rapid retreat. We finally stopped once we reached the entrance of the passage. We were now about 2,000 meters away from the lightning divine beast. However, many skeleton berserkers hadn't managed to escape. As a blinding light flared up, a 1,500-meter radius was instantly turned into nothingness. I could feel the skeleton berserkers dissipating one after another in the lightning. Fortunately, the other skeletons and I escaped the blast radius. Otherwise, I would have been completely wiped out. I then began to replenish my skeleton troops while continuing forward. By the time I stepped into the 8th passage, the cooldown for the strengthening skill had ended. This level was exactly as I had suspected. 2 lightning divine beasts were guarding this place. But after the previous battle, their 10 directions lightning skill was no longer a threat to me. The only trouble is their self-destruction. And I don't know if the range will expand if they self-destruct together. To be safe, I pulled them nearly 2,000 meters into the passage before starting the raid. This gave me over 3,000 meters of space. However, this time was just like the last time. I only passed this stage at the cost of all my skeleton berserkers being wiped out. Now, only the final stage remains. Once I pass this, I can complete the trade with Antares. I cleared it. Not only did I break through the shackles and push the lightning plague to its limit, but I also successfully stepped into the inheritance land of the lightning god. And right now, I have arrived at the entrance of the final stage. But I wasn't in a hurry to go in. Instead, I stayed put, waiting for the undying aura's cooldown to end. Based on the difficulty increase between stages, I guess there would be 3 lightning divine beasts in this level. Even with my strengthening skill, I could only kill 2 at most. But 3 uses of their 10 directions lightning skill would be enough to instantly kill me and my Undead Legion. Although the undying aura can resurrect the entire Undead Legion once. But one must always be prepared for any eventuality. So, I decided to leave 10,000 skeleton sharpshooters and all the lich generals outside. This way, they wouldn't have to endure the 10 directions lightning attacks. And according to the characteristics of my total connection talent, a day later, the cooldown for the undying aura finally ended. Then, I resolutely stepped into this final stage. 1,000 meters in, the 3 lightning divine beasts descended simultaneously. I immediately released the Aging Curse and Frost Lich to slow them down. Then, I dragged them over 2,000 meters deep into the passage. Now, I'm nearly 3,000 meters away from the entrance. Even if the 3 Thunderlight divine beasts self-destructed together, they wouldn't reach me. I then summoned 5,000 skeleton berserkers to besiege them. However, I wasn't in a hurry to use my strengthening skill. Instead, I used this time to quickly retreat over 1,000 meters away. Next, I took out the essence blood of the Venom God and began summoning a Venom Lich. Soon, a Venom Lich with an extremely unstable aura appeared before me. The next second, it rushed toward the 3 Thunderlight divine beasts as if it had teleported. After all, the skeleton berserkers have the highest burst damage in the Undead Legion. Combined with the strengthening skill, their damage is even more terrifying. And it's more than enough to deal with the low-health Thunderlight divine beasts. Its aura had reached an uncontrollable state. The next second, a terrifying green gas exploded silently. In an instant, the 3 lightning divine beasts were swallowed by the toxic gas. Then, their bodies began to rot at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, a massive amount of lightning surged from within their bodies. Seeing this, I immediately realized they weren't biological creatures. Instead, they were combat puppets composed of electric elements. Compared to them, the Dragon Clan's combat puppets are nothing. It's hard to imagine just how powerful the being that created these puppets must be. Although the 3 lightning divine beasts were being eroded by the toxic gas and didn't release their 10 directions lightning skill, their bodies began to glow brighter as they prepared to self-destruct. The next second, a blinding white light nearly swept through the entire passage. The skeleton berserkers covered by the lightning were all instantly killed without question. Fortunately, I was in a corner of the passage and wasn't affected. After that, I successfully reached the deepest part of the passage. There, I saw a giant crystal. But just as I was about to approach it, the surroundings suddenly lit up. Immediately after, a large number of purple crystals emerged from the ground. The crystals looked like beautiful gems. I could even see electricity flashing inside them. The next second, all the purple crystals rushed into my body like lightning. Then, I received a system notification. 10 identical notification messages popped up one after another. At this moment, my electric element immunity cap increased from 80% to 90%. Clearly, this was the reward for clearing the stage. This reward is undoubtedly something that professionals pursuing the limit dream of. Then, I arrived in front of the giant crystal. I saw a fist-sized bead sealed inside the crystal. And this bead was exactly the same as the one the Mind God gave me. The moment I took the bead out, then, a familiar divine aura drifted out from the cave. Seeing this, I walked in without hesitation. At the same time, a sharp howl echoed from somewhere in the deep space. Then, the Demon Emperor's palace at the center of the abyss began to shake violently. In the next second, the phantom of the Demon Emperor slowly emerged. It immediately ordered all the demons to kill me on the eternal battlefield at any cost. He immediately ordered all the demons to kill me at any cost in the eternal battlefield. The winner would receive a law treasure. As soon as he said this, all the Abyss Demon Kings were shaken. Such an event has only happened a few times in history. They were all curious about what I had actually done in the eternal battlefield. Clearly, he was determined to get his hands on that law treasure. However, the rotting Demon King beside him let out a mocking sneer. After all, that guy can even release such terrifying poison. Never mind the demons. Even if a Demon King went, they might not be able to kill him. Meanwhile, after I stepped into the cave, I noticed many fist-sized crystals embedded in the walls. After inspecting them, I found they were all lightning element essences. They could permanently increase my lightning element immunity. I immediately took one down and infused it with my mental power. The essence instantly transformed into a ball of energy and surged into my body. Fortunately, there was plenty of lightning essence in the cave. I collected all the remaining lightning essence for myself. There were over 500 pieces in total. Just then, I spotted a series of majestic palaces at the other end of the cave. The palace was enveloped in dense lightning. At the same time, the sword of the thunder god in my storage space suddenly reacted. Seeing this, I immediately realized that this palace was the long-lost thunder god palace. As I approached, the sword of the thunder god flew out of my bag and rushed toward the palace. As it erupted with brilliant electric light, the entire palace instantly turned into an ocean of lightning. I stood in the sea of electricity, letting the lightning strike my body without flinching. The lightning hitting me didn't cause any harm. Instead, it felt as if the electric elements were cheering and dancing. The next second, the palace doors, sealed for many years, slowly opened. Without a moment's hesitation, I stepped inside. But what met my eyes was the corpse of the lightning god. Massive lightning wrapped around the body like armor. The only place without lightning was the space between the brows. And there was a small grass mark on the forehead. Realizing what this meant, I took out the electric grass I had obtained earlier and placed it there. Its purpose was to awaken the lightning god. In an instant, the electric light surged. But at this moment, I felt a bit nervous, because I didn't know if what I was doing was right or wrong. Soon, the lightning vanished completely, revealing her true form. I was momentarily stunned when I saw her. I never expected the lightning god to be a woman. Despite being a low-level professional, I possessed the qualification to inherit a high-level divine position. Not only did I control the lightning power that punishes all things with a mortal body, I've even become the first genius in 1,000,000 years to possess dual primordial runes. It turns out that just now, after I used the electric grass to awaken the long-sleeping lightning god, suddenly, the lightning god sword outside the palace turned into a bolt of lightning and flew into her hands. Thank you, little human child, for letting me see the lightning god sword one last time before my soul completely dissipates. But suddenly, she seemed to sense something from me. You actually carry the aura of Antares. It seems it hasn't left this world. As long as it's here, the world is safe. Her words immediately piqued my curiosity. But then why would it appear in the eternal battlefield? With that thought, I began to ask the lightning god, hoping to get an answer from her. However, she didn't answer my question directly. Instead, she told me that once I transcend to godhood, all truths will be revealed. As she spoke, her aura began to fade rapidly. I must go. As a reward, I will grant you the power to command lightning. As her voice faded, her body and the lightning god's sword disintegrated silently. They transformed into pure electric elements and surged into my body. The next second, I received a system notification. Electric element immunity limit increased by 1%. 2 messages appeared in succession. From this moment on, I am completely immune to all electric elements. Immediately after, the system notification sounded again. Obtained mid-tier divinity. Absorbing divinity allows one to become a god. Obtain the god of lightning's divine position. I was completely stunned when I saw the rewards. I never expected the god of lightning to choose me as the next successor. You should know that although the god of lightning is a mid-tier god just like the venom god, her strength is already infinitely close to that of a high-tier god. But even so, I still have no intention of inheriting this position. After all, my goal isn't to become a god. And after the god of lightning collapsed, besides leaving behind the divine position and divinity, 10 crystal-like objects also fell into my hands. I can feel a very peculiar power contained within the crystals. This is a power I have never encountered before. Its level seems to have surpassed even the essence blood of the venom god. After investigating, I discovered they were actually mythical grade law divine crystals, which possessed the power of the electric element law. I was quite surprised when I saw the information panel. This was the first time I had ever encountered the term law. And as the god of lightning vanished, the entire thunder god's palace and the cave began to collapse rapidly. Seeing this, I didn't hesitate for a second and quickly retreated from the cave. At the same time, the rain of godfall began to fall on both the eternal battlefield and the human world. Antares, in the core area, slowly opened his eyes after sensing all this. The lightning god has fallen after all. I didn't expect that kid to actually wake her up. But that's for the best. After being lonely for so many years, she can finally be at peace. But just as I was about to leave, I discovered a stone tablet appearing within the collapsed mountain. Extremely complex runes were carved on the tablet. I recognized them at a glance as primordial runes. So, I immediately released my mental power to interact with the stone tablet. Suddenly, the runes on the tablet turned into flowing water and entered my body. Immediately after, a red light soared into the sky from my body. The soldier character rune on the back of my left hand was also shining brightly. It seemed to be resonating with the new primordial rune. Seeing this, I was overjoyed. After all, the soldier character rune allows me to fight opponents far above my level. If I could obtain another equally powerful skill, then my strength would reach an unimaginable level. By then, I wouldn't fear even if a demon king showed up. But to obtain the rune skill, I have to wait until the red light on my body disappears. For the next 10 days, I will be a target for all living creatures. But this time, I don't want to be on the defensive. Instead of waiting for enemies to keep coming to me, I might as well take the initiative and go on a killing spree. When I first stepped onto the Wind and Thunder continent, I was attacked by the dragon race. And I suspect they might be mass-producing more puppets. To verify this suspicion, I must head to the dragon race's territory to investigate. So, I activated my lightning undead wings and flew toward the dragon race's base. Along the way, a huge number of demons and dragons found me using the pillar of red light as a beacon. When they saw that I was only level 52, they all lost their minds with excitement. They thought the primordial rune was something they must obtain at all costs. But once they charged at me, they realized my strength was far beyond anything they could handle. Just like that, wave after wave of demons and dragons came to their deaths. My experience points slowly rose amidst the slaughter. Unfortunately, the military merit from killing them could no longer increase my rank. Only by slaying demon kings and dragon kings could I continue to increase my general stars. I'm already a 3-star divine general. Half a day later, thousands of dragon warships appeared in my sight, and each ship carried at least 100 powerful dragon soldiers. However, their eyes were hollow and lifeless. It was as if they had no souls inside them at all. Clearly, these were general-grade puppets created by the dragon race. Their numbers exceeded 100,000. This was enough for the dragon race to launch a devastating war against humanity. Even if they failed, they'd only lose some more puppets. But the humans dying would be real flesh and blood with actual souls. What puzzled me was where the dragon race got so many materials to build these war puppets. After all, creating general-grade puppets requires a massive amount of high-quality materials. While I was pondering this, the dragon commander on the warship spotted me. It's the human, Lin Mayu. How did he get another primordial rune? But that's fine. The Dragon King already issued a kill order for him. By killing him and handing the primordial rune to the Dragon King, we will surely receive a massive reward. It immediately ordered the entire army to move out and kill me on the spot. In an instant, all the warrior puppets rushed toward me like a black cloud. But seeing this, I felt no fear at all. This is perfect. I can level up again. The next second, the Undead Legion appeared out of thin air like phantoms. Skeleton berserkers rushed to the front to face the dragon warriors. Just as the two sides were about to collide, the strengthening soldier's skill on the back of my hand suddenly activated. At the same time, the Lich General applied a buff to the Undead Legion. In an instant, the combat power of the entire Undead Legion increased nearly tenfold. Then, the skeleton berserkers unleashed their skills one after another. A single strike could deal damage equivalent to over 8 million strength. These dragon warrior puppets were no match for them at all. Thousands of dragon warriors were killed instantly. Seeing this, the dragon commander was completely terrified. How is this possible? His summons could actually one-shot a dragon warrior with a single strike. Quickly, order all soldiers to retreat. He is no longer someone we can contend with. Unless the Dragon King himself steps in. A large number of dragon warriors began retreating back to the ships. But I wasn't about to let that experience go to waste. The corpse explosion skill activated instantly. The corpses of thousands of puppets exploded almost simultaneously. Under the strengthening soldier's state, the damage of corpse explosion was amplified by another 6 times. Forget about these level 70 dragon warriors. Even level 80s would struggle to survive such dense explosions. Instantly, a massive amount of dragon corpses fell from the sky. Even the shields of many warships shattered. The true dragon warriors on the ships looked panicked one after another. They wanted to escape, but it was already too late. Continuous corpse explosions destroyed them along with their warships. The remaining warships and dragon generals turned around and flew toward the dragon base. Seeing this, I didn't attack them. Instead, I planned to wipe them all out once I reached the dragon base. It's appearing. I didn't expect that by just destroying the dragon race's military base in the eternal battlefield, I would cause a long-hidden secret realm to emerge. It turns out that after I obtained the second primordial rune. While tracking them, the cooldown for my skill also ended. Finally, after 2.5 hours, a flying fortress appeared in my sight. It was surrounded by a large number of dragon warships. Clearly, this fortress was the dragon race's temporary base in the lower space. And in order to get specific information on the number of dragons, I immediately released my mental strength to cover the entire military fortress. But to my surprise, there was actually the aura of a secret realm inside. Could it be that this military fortress was built specifically to protect the secret realm? If that's really the case, then there must be unknown secrets within this secret realm. However, to find the truth, I must first break through this fortress and see it with my own eyes. But judging by the fortress's facilities and layout, breaking it would require at least a god-level expert. The only way is to use the self-destruction of the poisonous lich to dismantle its defenses. At this moment, tens of thousands of dragon warriors have me completely surrounded. Among them are many powerful dragons. Their auras are completely incomparable to those puppets from before. Every single one of them is over level 80. The strongest ones have even reached level 83. With such a powerful lineup, even a pseudo-god level expert would struggle to survive. However, they weren't in a hurry to attack. They were waiting for orders. Just then, a powerful dragon slowly flew out from the fortress. The aura it emitted had already exceeded level 85. The moment it appeared, all the dragons bowed to it respectfully. This is because it possesses an ancestral bloodline. Once it grows, it will surely become a top-tier dragon king ruling over a region. Even if its level were only 10, it could still stand on equal footing with an ordinary Dragon King. At this moment, it stared at me intensely, with thick killing intent in its eyes. Lin Moyu, you've killed countless of my dragon kin. This time, pay with your life. With that, it waved its hand. In an instant, almost all the dragon warriors rushed toward me at once. Seeing this, I simply let out a wicked smile. I then slowly took out a drop of the Venom God's essence blood and began summoning the elemental lich. In the next second, chaotic venom liches appeared one after another. A venom lich with a chaotic aura appeared silently. Then, it shot toward the fortress as if it had teleported. Seeing this, the leading dragon commanders suddenly had a bad feeling. Stop it! In an instant, thousands of warships fired energy beams at the venom lich. But the venom lich's speed was far beyond what those siege ships could keep up with. It took less than a second to cover a distance of over 1,000 meters. The next moment, the venom lich exploded right on the military fortress. Every living thing within 100 meters was instantly melted by the venom. Even the sturdy military fortress began to slowly corrode. The dragon commander's face paled when he saw this. What did you do? But the only answer he got was my aging curse skill. The moment the curse hit, the entire battlefield was shrouded in a red light. Then, the undead army and elemental liches appeared all at once. As soon as the skeletons appeared, several halos manifested around them. At the same time, the rune skill on the back of my hand suddenly activated. In a second, the skeleton's attributes skyrocketed. Tens of thousands of berserkers charged at the dragon generals with their great swords. Simultaneously, a speck of green light exploded among the dragon ranks. With the buff from my strong soldier skill, the Venom Starburst skill could deal up to 180,000 damage per second. Combined with the Venom Lich's Venom Aura, most level 70 dragon generals wouldn't last more than a few seconds. After all, their constitution wasn't even 200,000. The leading dragon commander saw that I had not only destroyed their fortress, but now his kin were dying in droves because of the poison. He finally snapped, roaring as he charged at me to kill me. But it was intercepted halfway by the skeleton berserkers. Even though it had an atavistic bloodline at level 85, its attributes were much stronger than other dragons of the same level. When the berserker's burst skill triggered, it was forced into a continuous retreat. I just gave it a sidelong glance and ignored it, turning my attention instead to the fallen dragon warriors. I raised my hand and unleashed the corpse explosion skill. In an instant, violent explosions erupted across the entire battlefield. Each blast wiped out a massive number of dragon warriors, and even the surrounding warships were destroyed one after another. The only ones who survived were a few level 80 dragon warriors, but they were soon swarmed by the skeleton berserkers. Behind them, a horde of skeleton archmages and skeleton archers provided long-range support. Meanwhile, their military fortress had been completely corroded by deadly poison, and a secret realm slowly began to emerge. Seeing this, the dragon commander immediately ordered his troops to defend the secret realm. He knew exactly what was hidden inside. If I were to discover its secrets, the consequences would be unthinkable. However, the recent battle had nearly decimated the dragon army, leaving only a few level 80 warriors barely clinging to life. And I managed to pull all this off in just a few dozen seconds. He never imagined that even though my level was only 52, my strength had already far surpassed ordinary pseudo-god level experts. I let out a cold sneer as I looked at the remaining remnants. Then, the skeleton berserkers tossed the dragon corpses toward them. The moment they saw the bodies, the dragons turned and fled in terror. They had just witnessed the sheer power of that skill. The mere aftershock of the explosion could instantly kill a level 70 warrior, and even a level 80 warrior couldn't withstand more than a few hits. They were already heavily injured. One or two more hits, and they would definitely be dead. Even the commander with the atavistic bloodline was in the same boat. It burst with powerful strength, shaking off the skeletons to escape. But in the next second, they were all bound in midair by the bone prison, unable to move. Although they could have broken free in a second or two given their level and strength. The skeleton berserker threw even more corpses at them. They could only watch helplessly as the corpses exploded right in front of them. The terrifying shockwave submerged them like a tsunami. Just when I thought all the dragons were doomed, a sudden roar erupted from the explosion. Die! The dragon commander's horns began to glow brightly. In the next second, it transformed into a giant dragon and lunged at me like lightning. Its long spear stabbed fiercely into my body. It even risked damaging its soul to use its ancestral bloodline just for this one strike. My bone armor was instantly turned to dust by the impact. But all the remaining damage was transferred to the Undead Legion instead. I didn't even lose a single hair. Seeing this, the dragon commander was completely stunned. Seeing its shocked expression, a small smile played on my lips. Not bad attack power, but it's nowhere near enough. With that, I unleashed a skill I hadn't used in a while, Bone Fangs. In an instant, over 3,000 bone fangs pierced through its body. The massive damage worsened its injuries once again. It instantly lost its will to fight. It knew very well it was no match for me, so it didn't hesitate to use its ancestral bloodline again. The next second, it became immune to all negative status effects. Then it turned into a bolt of lightning and fled into the distance. I watched it flee but didn't chase after it. Instead, I focused on myself. Because the recent battle had raised my level to 53. My Undead Legion also increased to 33 units as a result. The total number of skeletons had now reached 32,670. At the same time, my attributes also received a significant boost. Then, I turned my gaze toward the secret realm. I wondered what secrets might be hidden inside. To think that a peerless monster capable of slaying a god with a mortal body was actually looked down upon by human professionals in the eternal battlefield. They even wanted to snatch the primordial rune from me. But just a hint of the murderous aura I released was enough to terrify those professionals who looked down on me. It turns out that after I defeated the dragon army, I began focusing on the entrance to the secret realm. But the entrance and exit were now shrouded in toxic gas. The gas had already spread across a 10-kilometer radius. The former battlefield had now become a forbidden zone. You see, the Venom God's toxic gas is enough to kill any pseudo-god level powerhouse. Even the Black Sky Demon King's clone couldn't withstand it. Unless you raise your poison immunity to 100%, you can't ignore the gas to enter the secret realm. Fortunately, killing the Venom God had already raised my poison immunity cap to 100%. And the venomous dragon's spinal cord happened to increase my poison immunity. So, I took out the spinal cord and began absorbing it frantically. After half an hour, I finally increased my poison immunity from 80% to 100%. From now on, I'll be immune to all poison element damage. But when I arrived at the entrance of the secret realm to enter, an unknown force repelled me. After thinking for a moment, I realized why. It turns out that from the moment I obtained the primordial rune, I've been in an extremely special state. In this state, I can't enter any secret realms or dungeons. I can only enter after the 10-day trial period is over. There are still 8 days left in my primordial rune trial period. I thought about just resting here and waiting for the trial to pass. But before I could even sit down, I sensed a powerful aura sweeping in from the distance. Immediately after, the sky was dyed a dark green. Seeing this scene, my expression instantly turned solemn. Because this is the sign of the Abyss Demon King's descent. And this aura isn't just a clone of the Demon King. It's his true body descending. Clearly, he was transported through a space-time tunnel in the deep space. Although he can only exist in the lower space for a few minutes if he uses his full power. Even a few seconds would make it hard for me to survive. The only thing I'm lucky about is that I'm currently in the middle of poisonous gas. And the Venom God's poison is something that even the Demon King finds very troublesome. But as its figure appeared outside the toxic gas, the abyss fire on its body burned wildly in the air. In at most half an hour, the abyss fire would burn away all the toxic gas here. At this moment, I finally saw clearly the Demon King within the abyss fire. I had read materials about Demon Kings before, so I recognized it at a glance as an elite-level fire spirit Demon King. Its strength was even significantly stronger than the Flame Demon King. I could feel that I had been firmly locked onto by its aura. The moment I left the toxic gas, I would be met with a terrifying attack. But since I'm currently in the testing period of the primordial rune, I simply can't leave the eternal battlefield. Even Antares' Dragon Pearl wouldn't be able to teleport me away. The only thing that might be useful is the teleportation stone of Xinxia Ancient City. But it can only be used once. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't want to use it. But just then, several other auras swept in from the distance. And their auras were no weaker than the Fire Spirit Demon King in front of me. At this point, I didn't realize that the Demon Emperor had already issued a death warrant for me. It wasn't until I saw their true forms that I realized the problem. So, without a second thought, I activated the teleportation stone of Xinxia Ancient City. The next second, my figure vanished instantly. At the same time, a red light suddenly soared into the sky from Xinxia Ancient City. Everyone was startled by this sudden red light. Holy crap! It's the red light emitted by the primordial rune. Who on earth obtained the primordial rune? Seeing this, many people in the ancient city looked on with envy. One man lamented that he'd been here for years and hadn't even seen the shadow of a primordial rune. A man nearby let out a mocking laugh. He said that those who obtain a primordial rune are incredibly lucky. Don't even dream about it. You're just an extra, he mocked. Besides, even if you did get one, you might not be able to keep it. He noted that too many people in this Xinxia ancient city wanted a primordial rune. They might even challenge you to a life and death duel just to snatch it. So, you need immense strength to protect a primordial rune. The appearance of the primordial rune also alerted the local commander, Feng Yiming. He immediately rushed to the teleportation array where the red light was. But to his surprise, the person who obtained the primordial rune was actually me. He was only briefly surprised before returning to normal. Because in his eyes, my very existence was a miracle. He looked at the soldier's badge on my shoulder with shock. Seeing its shocked expression, a small smile played on my lips. Not bad attack power. However, my presence here left him feeling quite confused. But it's nowhere near enough. There shouldn't be any creature in the entire lower space that could force me to seek refuge in the ancient city. So, I told him everything that had happened. I explained that at least 3 elite-level demon kings were hunting me. Hearing this, Feng Yiming was incredibly shocked, even though he didn't understand what I could have possibly done to be hunted by 3 demon kings. But he told me not to worry. There is a reason why the ancient city of Xinxia has remained intact for thousands of years. It is not as if demon kings haven't come here before. But in the end, they were all beaten and forced to flee in panic. So he believes the ancient city of Xinxia can repel these demon kings once again. Then, he arranged a residence for me reserved exclusively for god-level experts. Half an hour later, Meng Anwen, who was in the divine courtyard, also heard the news about me. He couldn't believe that I had obtained another primordial rune. This kid has broken historical records once again. And he has even become a 3-star god general. He really wonders what I went through in the lower space. Meng Anwen had a smile on his face and seemed extremely happy. Then, he closed his eyes again and entered a state of meditation. Meanwhile, I had fully replenished the undead army I lost previously. Then, I opened my attribute panel to take a look. I found that my current attributes had increased by over 19,000 compared to when I was level 52. You have to realize that even for a top-tier class like the Earth Knight. But my total attributes have already reached 490,000. And as my level continues to rise, the gap between the two will only grow larger. After resting for a while, I prepared to leave my residence and head to the city shops. But as soon as I pushed open the door, I attracted a lot of attention. He is finally coming out. Don't try to beat me to it. I will be the first one up for this life and death arena battle. Most of them had rushed back from training in the wild after hearing the news. Every single one of them was thinking of issuing a life and death challenge to me. Because as long as they kill me, they can inherit the primordial runes. But the moment I stepped out of the room, everyone present was shocked. Not only was I bathed in a blinding red light, but the divine general badge on my shoulder was equally dazzling. The people who were just shouting about challenging me were now all too afraid to even breathe heavily. Even as I walked past them, they all stood up straight and gave me respectful looks. It was because they could sense a faint, murderous aura coming from me. It was the lingering aura from the great battle that hadn't fully faded yet. Only after I had walked far away did this group finally breathe a sigh of relief. Oh my god. He's already a 3-star divine general at level 53. This means he's killed at least 3 demon kings or gods. This is simply terrifying. If he reaches level 70, just how powerful will he become? Are you stupid? His level is definitely higher than 53. He must have used some item to hide his true level. I'd guess his level is at least in the 80s. You don't know anything. A deep voice rang out, interrupting everyone's speculation. A deep voice rang out, interrupting everyone's speculation. A level 85 berserker walked over. You guys haven't been back to the human world in too long, have you? If you want to know about Divine General Lin, you can just ask around when you get back. I can tell you clearly. And this primordial rune is the second one he's obtained. If you're not afraid to die, feel free to challenge him. Everyone was stunned by his words. They couldn't believe a level 53 professional could already be comparable to a god. They've arrived. They've arrived. 6 demon kings from the abyss world had descended upon the eternal battlefield simultaneously. They led hundreds of thousands of abyss troops to attack the humans' Xinxia ancient city. But as the prey, I chose to stay and fight a decisive battle against several demon kings. Just a moment ago, I immediately activated the teleportation stone to return to Xinxia ancient city in the lower space. However, the primordial rune I possessed made many professionals covet it. Some experts even rushed back from their training, intending to challenge me to a life and death duel. But as soon as I stepped out of my temporary lodging, those who wanted to challenge me were so terrified they couldn't even breathe. It was because my rank had reached the terrifying level of a 3-star divine general. In the entire lower space, the highest rank among professionals was only an 8-star colonel. They knew exactly how difficult it was to reach the rank of Divine General. With their strength, they would struggle even against a level 85 demon. Now, they were all feeling a sense of dread. They felt lucky that they hadn't challenged me. Soon, many of them started flattering me. People felt that once I stepped into the god level, it would be the end of the abyss. They were right. With my talent, once I grow, I will surely lead the human race to invade the abyss and wipe out every demon and demon king in there. As soon as they said this, everyone became excited. But just then, the sky over the ancient city suddenly turned dark green. Dark green abyss fires began to appear one after another. Everyone was shocked by the sight. It's over, it's over. This must be the descent of a demon king's true body. What are you so afraid of? You have to remember, the Xinxia ancient city was built by human super-rankers. The entire city is protected by an ancient formation. Even a demon emperor might not be able to break through. At that moment, the Abyss army swept in like a tidal wave. Their numbers even exceeded 100,000. And within the Abyss fires behind the army, the figures of 5 demon kings appeared. The professionals who were just saying everything was fine immediately lost their composure. Holy crap. I've never seen such a massive scale, even on the former battlefield. I wonder if the city's defenses can hold up. Just then, spires within the ancient city slowly rose into the sky. Feng Yiming's voice echoed from the towers. The Abyss army has arrived at the city gates. The city army immediately entered a state of combat readiness. All professionals in the city formed teams to join the military. Hearing this, I immediately left the pharmacy and headed to the city gate. I finally realized that I must have pissed off the Abyss world somehow. Otherwise, they wouldn't deploy such a massive army just for a single primordial rune. But even so, Feng Yiming on the spire showed no fear. I could even see confidence in his eyes. Just then, a deafening voice of a demon king echoed from outside the city. Hand over Lin Moyu obediently, or else we'll storm the ancient city and slaughter you all. As soon as those words were spoken, the professionals in the ancient city turned to look at me in shock. This was clearly a move to start a war with the human race. Hearing this, Feng Yiming let out a cold laugh. But how many more times can your lower space actually act? With nothing but these small fry, you think you can slaughter my Xinxia ancient city? Even if your demon emperor showed up, she wouldn't dare talk such big game. If you know what's good for you, get lost and go back to your demon emperor. Hearing this, the demon kings of the abyss were enraged. They are as high as the god-level experts of the human race. Yet now, they were being insulted like this by a mere level 80 human. They immediately waved their hands, ordering the abyss army to begin the siege. In an instant, all the demons rushed towards Xinxia ancient city. Seeing this, Feng Yiming actually smiled. Perfect. Then, he struck the ancient thunder tower with a punch. All the power of the formation concentrated on the spire. A bolt of lightning shot out from the spire, piercing the sky. In an instant, the abyss army surrounding the ancient city was swallowed by a sea of lightning. Immediately after, the screams of demons mixed with thunderous roars echoed from the sea of lightning. But at that moment, the 5 demon kings acted simultaneously to block most of the damage for them. The demons that were about to be obliterated by the lightning all managed to survive. Seeing this, Feng Yiming's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect the heavenly lightning he summoned with all his might to be blocked. Meanwhile, a massive number of demons had begun attacking the ancient city's protective shield. Suddenly, the entire ancient city began to shake. But the 5 demon kings still didn't make a move. Because once they acted, the time they could exist in the lower dimension would be drastically shortened. They want to save their precious time to deal with me the moment the city falls. Just then, Feng Yiming exited the ancient thunder tower and came to my side. He told me he had used all his strength in that last strike. But he still couldn't fully unleash the formation's power. Combined with the 5 demon kings blocking the formation's attacks outside the city, facing hundreds of thousands of abyss soldiers over level 70. It's only a matter of time before it's broken. Now, the only hope is to control the lightning core inside the ancient thunder tower. It can allow the formation to unleash its maximum power. It's said that at full power, it can even slay a demon king. But even I. However, an electric-type mage once managed to do it. Although they couldn't push the tower's power to its absolute limit. But they also successfully defeated a demon king. But currently, there is no lightning mage in the city who can compare to that person. All we can do now is arrange for the professionals to be teleported back to the human world as quickly as possible. So, please, Godlin, evacuate as soon as possible. But hearing this, instead of leaving, I slowly walked into the interior of the ancient thunder tower. Even though Feng Yiming kept trying to stop me, I didn't back down at all. A domain formed by lightning appeared around it. I could clearly feel the power of the lightning within the domain. It was even more terrifying than the lightning in the final stage of Burial Thunder Canyon. Forget about controlling it. Even an ordinary level 80 professional would find it hard to even get close. But by now, I had achieved 100% lightning element immunity. As I placed my hand on the lightning core, in an instant, a massive current surged into my mental world. Immediately after, images of the surroundings of the Xinxia ancient city appeared in my mind. I could see everything within a 100-kilometer radius. To my surprise, besides the 5 demon kings, there was an even more powerful demon king hiding behind the abyssal fire. It stood there like a shadow. I had seen information about it in the human records before. It specialized in shadow assassination. It had even successfully assassinated god-level experts of the human race. I didn't expect the abyss to send it to assassinate me. Fortunately, I have now completely taken control of the ancient Thunder Tower. I can just use them to test how strong this tower created by the Transcendent is. Truly shocking. The very first day I returned to the ancient city of Xinxia, I was hunted by the Abyss World. Not only did they deploy their highest-ranking Demon Legion, but they even sent out 6 Demon Kings who are on par with god-level experts. They thought they could kill me on the spot this time. But the strength I displayed shocked even the Demon Emperor of the Abyss. It turns out that just moments ago, I gave up on evacuating the ancient city of Xinxia and stepped into the ancient Thunder Tower. And I successfully controlled the Thunder Core inside. Soon, a sea of lightning descended upon the battlefield outside the ancient city once again. 5 Demon Kings acted again to help the Abyss army resist the sea of lightning. But they quickly discovered that this sea of lightning was far more terrifying than the previous ones. Despite using all their strength, they couldn't block it completely. In an instant, a massive number of demons were struck down and killed by the lightning sea. Seeing this, Feng Yiming was overjoyed. Judging by the power of the lightning sea, he knew I had taken control of the ancient Thunder Tower, and that I had pushed its power to an unimaginable level. Little did they know that previous bolt of lightning was just a warm-up. As I controlled the Thunder Core to release bolt after bolt of lightning, the lightning it released became increasingly terrifying. Without realizing it, I entered a state of oneness with the ancient Thunder Tower. And from this moment on, I pushed the power of the formation to its absolute limit. The protective shield, which had been on the verge of collapse, suddenly became incredibly solid. At the same time, the coverage of the lightning sea expanded significantly. The entire 10-kilometer radius around the ancient city of Xinxiao was covered by violent lightning. Seeing this, the Abyss demons began to fall into chaos. The demon kings behind them also realized something was wrong. So they immediately ordered the army to launch a full-scale attack. It remained completely unmoved, even against the attacks of tens of thousands of demons. Feng Yiming burst into laughter at the sight. It's useless. Unless your demon emperor personally takes action. Otherwise, it's impossible to break the ancient city's defenses. These words immediately enraged a demon king. A mere defense is nothing. Watch as I break your pathetic turtle shell. As he spoke, his palm, wreathed in blue ice flames, slammed against the shield. The shield instantly distorted under the impact. But as the ancient Thunder Tower released a surge of energy, the previously turbulent shield stabilized in an instant. Seeing this, the Ice Flame Demon King was somewhat shocked. Immediately after, it released all its power and struck again with its palm. But even though the entire shield was covered in ice flames, there was still no reaction. I just gave a calm smile. At this moment, a hint of killing intent flashed in my eyes. In the next second, a thin bolt of lightning shot from the ancient Thunder Tower into the Ice Flame Demon King's body. 2 seconds later, it let out a scream and violently spat out blood. Its aura instantly withered away. Without any hesitation, it opened a space-time tunnel, attempting to escape back to the deep space. But how could I let it escape right from under my nose? 2 bolts of lightning shot out from the ancient Thunder Tower simultaneously, while the other struck the Ice Flame Demon King directly. In the next second, its body and soul were both turned to ash. The other 4 Demon Kings were stunned by this sight. They also realized just how terrifying this Xinxia ancient city truly was. So, they all opened space-time channels, preparing to escape back to deep space. They couldn't care less about the Abyss army. Even the Dark Demon King hiding in the shadows began to waver. But in the next second, several bolts of lightning struck down, destroying all the space-time channels. Since you've come, you're not leaving. My voice echoed slowly from within the ancient city. Immediately after, bolts of lightning rained down upon their heads. Seeing this, the faces of several demon kings changed drastically. To save their lives, they all released their full power to resist. Seeing the Ice Flame Demon King fall, Feng Yiming's eyes instantly lit up. He never expected that I could actually make the ancient Thunder Tower release Pearl God Lightning. No one has ever managed to do this since the Xinxia ancient city was built. But now, this is happening because of me. The practitioners in the ancient city all began to cheer at this moment. They had witnessed the fall of a demon king with their own eyes. Now, the other 4 demon kings were also about to be destroyed by the ancient city's formations. At this time, one demon king finally couldn't hold on any longer and roared angrily. If you don't act now, we're finished. It could no longer care about its original plan. In this situation, survival was the top priority. A bunch of useless trash. A scolding voice rang out from the sky. Immediately after, a figure appeared before everyone's eyes. It spread its wings violently, releasing an aura of the abyss. Then, it formed a black veil in the sky to block the Pearl God Lightning. From this, it was clear that its strength was far greater than the other demon kings. But at this moment, the domain divine stone in my sea of consciousness began to spin wildly. Then, a surge of killing intent erupted from my body and drilled into the lightning core. In an instant, the power of the ancient Thunder Tower was enhanced once again. The Dark Demon King was instantly terrified by what he felt. It was actually the aura of laws. In an instant, the black barrier in the sky was shaken to its foundations by the Pearl God Lightning. It looked like it could shatter at any moment. Seeing this, the Demon Kings exchanged looks and nodded in unison. At this point, they had no choice but to use that one move. They simultaneously formed hand seals and chanted a series of incantations. A second later, a massive formation slowly emerged in the sky outside the ancient city. At the same time, a surge of black gas rapidly spread from beneath their feet. The demons thought this was a formation the Demon Kings had prepared for their retreat. But a moment later, the black gas began to frantically harvest their lives. The demons, who were already barely clinging to life, were slaughtered in massive numbers instantly. Their essence blood began to flow into the formation in the sky. The professionals in the ancient city were stunned by the sight. Holy crap! What's happening? Why are the demons killing each other? However, he didn't understand why the demon kings would do this. Even if they sacrificed every single demon, they could at most summon one mid-level demon. And judging by the current situation, unless the demon emperor herself descends, anyone else who comes will die. By now, all the demons outside the ancient city had been wiped out. Their essence blood had been completely sucked dry by the formation in the sky. But even that wasn't enough to trigger the blood sacrifice. This action dealt them massive damage. Aside from the Dark Demon King, the levels of the other 4 Demon Kings dropped to the edge of level 90. They were just one step away from no longer being Demon Kings. Seeing this, I immediately felt a sense of dread. With so many high-level demons and Demon Kings performing a blood sacrifice together, could it be that they aren't summoning a mid-tier Demon King, but a Demon King of an even higher rank? As I was thinking, a space-time portal appeared in the sky. Immediately after, an extremely terrifying aura began to spread from within. In the next second, the professionals in the ancient city were all pinned to the ground, trembling from the pressure. Even Feng Yiming couldn't stop shaking. It's all over. Could this terrifying aura mean the Demon Emperor has descended in person? I was instantly shocked. You have to realize that the Demon Emperor is the ruler of the Abyss. It said its strength is on par with the human race's half-step transcendent. But considering the rules of the lower space restrict even mid-tier Demon Kings, how much more so for a half-step transcendent like the Demon Emperor? Clearly, things weren't that simple. Sure enough, the Demon Emperor didn't appear in the portal. Instead, an illusory image of one of the Demon Emperor's fingers emerged. Even so, I didn't lower my guard for a second. I immediately channeled all my strength into the Goulet Tower to clash with the Phantom. The moment the two forces collided, a sound like shattering glass rang out from all sides. Massive spatial cracks immediately began to appear. Seeing this, all the professionals looked relieved and surprised. But the Demon Kings looked horrified and in disbelief. They never expected the power of the Demon Emperor's finger to be blocked like this. By then, I had already exited the Goulet Tower. Then, a flame lich emerged. It rushed toward the Demon Kings, carrying violent flames. But just then, a voice suddenly came from the other side of the space-time tunnel. It was actually the aura of the Fire God. Then, the Demon Emperor's finger phantom flicked slightly. In the next second, the 5 Demon Kings within the space-time tunnel vanished instantly. It's awakened. But it also laid the foundation for me to become a transcendent. It turns out that after I successfully repelled the Abyss army, I stepped into the interior of the ancient Thunder Tower once more. I had discovered some secrets while manipulating the tower just now. But at that moment, The military teleportation array in the ancient city suddenly lit up. 3 practitioners with massive auras stepped out. They all radiated the aura of god-level experts. The strongest among them was even as high as level 92. It turns out that the moment the Abyss army attacked the Xinxia ancient city, Feng Yiming immediately sent a distress signal to the high-ranking officials of the Xinxia Empire. However, once they arrived, they found that the battle had already ended. The distress signal had clearly stated that the Abyss had deployed 5 demon kings and an army of 100,000. Yet the battle was over in less than 10 minutes. And it was the powerful Abyss that had been defeated. Even though these 3 were well-traveled god-level experts, they couldn't help but be shocked. After all, the highest level here was only level 86, Feng Yiming. Even if he could control the ancient thunder tower in the city, there was no way he could have repelled several demon kings. Just as they were wondering, Feng Yiming told them exactly what had just happened. They never expected that I could unleash such power from the ancient thunder tower. Not only did I take down a demon king, but I also forced 5 other demon kings to perform a blood sacrifice. In the end, even the demon emperor's finger could only manage a draw. That old man by Yuan really struck gold. To have such a great disciple. After speaking, the 3 of them teleported back to the deep space. Meanwhile, in the demon emperor's palace within the Abyss world, the 5 demon kings from before were being roasted in the Abyss fire. However, there wasn't a trace of pain on their faces. Instead, their injuries were rapidly healing. Eventually, their auras even became stronger than before. Then, the demon emperor on the throne spoke slowly. You all did well this time. Although we couldn't kill Lin Moyu, but even I didn't expect him to be able to control the ancient thunder tower. He could even release lightning containing the power of rules. So, don't be discouraged. Next time, find another opportunity to strike him. On the other hand, through the Thunder Core, I saw the origins of the ancient Xinxia city. It was completely different from the history recorded by the human race. It came from the Outer Realm battlefield, and it was already in a state of ruin when it descended upon the eternal battlefield. It looked as if it had been shattered by something. It only managed to be repaired after countless ages. But its current scale is only 1/10 of what it used to be. After finishing this history, I left the ancient Thunder Tower. A few days later, the primordial rune finally completed its fusion. A corresponding rune appeared on the back of my right hand. Then, the system notified me that I had obtained the skill Power Gathering. It gathers the power of designated summons. Not only can it inherit all of their skills, but it also fuses some of their attributes. Duration, 5 minutes. It's hard to judge how strong this skill is just by reading the description. So, I left the ancient city to find some monsters to test its strength. Right after, the Undead Legion and elemental liches appeared all at once. The moment I activated the power gathering skill, countless points of light instantly lit up my mental world. At that moment, every single summon on the field established a link with me. Then, a massive amount of power was transmitted from all my summons. In the next second, my 4 basic attributes skyrocketed. At the same time, various skills converged upon my body. I immediately opened my attribute panel. The moment I saw my stats, I was completely stunned. And it's over 10 times higher than other legendary practitioners of the same level. Then my total attributes would reach as high as 12 million, which is enough to rival ordinary god-level experts. Thinking about this, I felt incredibly excited. However, I found that my attributes didn't change at all. I suspect there's only one possibility. That means 1 million in a single attribute is already my current limit. My attribute ceiling might increase further as my level rises. However, even if the strengthening soldier skill can't increase my attributes anymore, the 4 million total attributes still increased my combat power 5-fold. Not to mention, I've also inherited all the skills of the Undead Legion, especially the Berserk Roar I inherited from the Skeleton Berserker. Based on my current 1 million strength attribute, it can unleash damage equivalent to 6 million strength, combined with the 500% damage boost from the strengthening soldier skill. At the same time, I cast a detection spell. After checking, I discovered this monster was actually a level 73 world-class boss. It's the perfect chance to effectively test this new skill. At that moment, the Roaring Fang Beast King also noticed me. It charged at me like a cannonball. Seeing this, I swung my platinum-grade greatsword and struck down. A powerful red light erupted from the blade. Even though this was my first time using the Berserk Roar skill, this strike was even more powerful than when the Skeleton Berserker used it. It felt as if it could tear through space itself. Carrying the power of Berserk Rage, the blade landed precisely on the Roaring Fang Beast King's head. With a loud crack, I could almost hear the sound of bones shattering. It let out a sudden, piercing scream. Then, the spikes on its body shot out like sharp swords. Those spikes were incredibly fast. I barely even had a chance to dodge. But when the spikes hit me, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean, without causing even a single ripple. Seeing this, a smug smile curled on my lips. My current constitution is as high as 1 million, while this world boss's strength attribute is only 800,000. Breaking through my defense would be as difficult as climbing to heaven. It didn't even trigger my passive skill, damage transfer. At this moment, I truly felt my own power. Suddenly, elemental power erupted with a roar. The roaring fanged beast king let out another scream as it was blasted into the air. Although this skill looked grand and imposing, it didn't actually deal much substantial damage to it. After all, elemental explosion is only a level 50 skill, and its power is ultimately limited. The only benefit is that this skill combines the marksman's soul lock, allowing for a 100% hit rate on the target. Then, I tried out other skills, with the support of a massive amount of base attributes. Skills like Soul Flame were indeed enhanced, but skills like Bone Fong and Venomous Starburst showed no change at all. It didn't bring a huge boost to my overall combat power. It was only equivalent to a few dozen skeleton berserkers, and this state can only be maintained for 5 minutes. This couldn't help but raise doubts in my mind. Is the skill from this primordial rune really this useless? Suddenly, I thought of the true purpose of this skill. The true value of the concentration skill isn't in the present, but in the future. First, at the critical moment of the third advancement, I can use the concentration skill to break through the limit of my base attributes, thereby greatly increasing the success rate of my class sublimation. Secondly, as my level increases, perhaps I can use this skill to reach the god level realm, even breaking the 10 million mark in a certain base attribute. At that time, I'll be able to break through the shackles and leap to become a transcendent god. But all of this depends on being able to keep this skill, because once I step into the god level, the primordial rune and its associated skills will disappear. The only way is to enter the primordial secret realm to find a way to preserve the skill. However, there is very little information about the primordial secret realm in the human world. Suddenly, I thought of something, and my eyes lit up. So I quickly cut down the boss in front of me, and then took out the Dragon Ball to call for Antares. I finally repelled the Abyss army and entered the hidden secret realm within the dragon race's territory. But I didn't expect that another peak battle would be waiting for me. It turns out that right after the primordial rune finished fusing with me, I obtained a skill that allows me to fuse the attributes of summons into myself. The effect directly raised my overall strength by several levels. And in order to preserve my 2 rune skills, I must figure out certain things within the primordial secret realm. After calling several times, Antares' voice finally rang out. But there was a hint of dissatisfaction in its voice. Kid, do you know how bad my mood is right now? You still dare to disturb my rest? But I didn't care about its mood and asked directly. Do you know about the primordial secret realm? Antares snorted coldly and said proudly, Of course I know. Hearing this, I was overjoyed. No. Antares rejected my request without hesitation. Such a blunt answer gave me a certain suspicion, considering the extremely limited records of the primordial secret realm in human history. I began to wonder if Antares simply didn't want to talk or couldn't. So, I let out a soft, helpless sigh and said, The powerhouses of history all kept their mouths shut about the things inside the primordial secret realm. I originally thought that with your status and position, you wouldn't have any concerns. But now it seems you're just like them. Hearing this, Antares flew into a rage. Clearly, it was dissatisfied with my questioning. How dare you question me? The primordial secret realm is nothing more than a test set up by that guy. But halfway through its sentence, it suddenly stopped. Kid, you actually dare to test me. Hearing this, the corners of my mouth curled up slightly. I had finally succeeded in getting some useful information out of it. I just didn't know who that guy it mentioned actually was. But anyone mentioned by Antares like that certainly wouldn't be an ordinary person. After thinking for a moment, I thick-skinnedly asked again. A few days ago, I obtained another primordial rune. Do you think I should enter the primordial secret realm now, or wait until later? Antares seemed slightly surprised by this. There weren't many things left in this world that could move it. However, it quickly returned to normal. It's not uncommon for someone to obtain 2 primordial runes. But accordingly, the difficulty of preserving skills will also increase. At this point, Antares let out a chuckle. As for when you'll go, that depends on what good things you bring to trade with me next time. After saying that, it cut off our communication. It was clearly telling me that if I wanted the answers, I had to complete a trade with it first. However, I caught 2 key pieces of information from that conversation. First, there is some kind of trial within the primordial secret realm. To keep my skills, I must pass this trial. Second, the difficulty of the trial increases based on the number of primordial runes. Next, I had to head to the Dragon Clan's territory to explore that secret realm. So, I activated my lightning undead wings and rushed there. Half a day later, I finally arrived at my destination. The toxic gas around the secret realm still hadn't dissipated. But for me, with 100% immunity to poison, it was no threat. I walked in without hesitation. A massive formation suddenly appeared above my head. Immediately after, a terrifying force swept in like a violent storm. I was sent flying by the massive impact. My bone armor was instantly shattered upon contact with this force. Fortunately, all the damage I took was transferred to the Undead Legion. Otherwise, even if I had multiple lives, it wouldn't have been enough. Because the power of this formation has already reached the divine level. It was a mix of physical and elemental attacks. I could clearly sense that the Undead Legion was suffering unimaginable damage. What was even more of a headache was that this formation was still running. Terrifying power, like massive waves, slammed into me one after another. If this continued, I would definitely die. So, I immediately released all my lich generals to provide healing. I was trying to stabilize my injuries. Seeing this, I activated my rune skill, gathering power, without hesitation. In an instant, my attributes soared to their limit. My constitution jumped from over 90,000 to 1 million. My defense received a massive qualitative boost. The damage the formation dealt to me also dropped instantly. This also gave the lich generals a chance to catch their breath. Their healing began to become much more effective. At that moment, I noticed hundreds of magic crystals placed at the center of the formation. These crystals were continuously providing energy to the formation. So, I pulled out a platinum-grade longsword and rushed toward the core. But just then, a massive shadow suddenly rushed toward me from the distance. I responded immediately. I swung my longsword in a wide arc. It hit the shadow with perfect accuracy. To my surprise, the shadow wasn't even pushed back. Instead, it opened its massive maw and lunged straight at me. Keep in mind, my strength attribute is currently as high as 1 million. Even a level 80 world-class boss wouldn't be a match for my current strength. While dodging its bites, I swung my sword at it several more times. But every strike felt like I was hitting a solid iron plate. From the vibrations coming from my longsword, I realized the monster before me was incredibly powerful, and it was likely the guardian of this formation. So, I decisively threw out a soul flame. The next second, the monster let out a shrill scream and fell from the sky. Immediately after, the aging curse took effect. Its speed slowed down instantly. I seized this opportunity and rushed toward the core of the formation at top speed. The longsword in my hand flashed with a blinding red light. I activated the Berserk Killing Blow skill. The longsword struck the core of the formation with extreme destructive power. A second later, the magic source of the formation shattered instantly. In an instant, the formation's power was reduced by 2/3. It was no longer a threat to me. Then, I turned my gaze toward the monster that had suddenly appeared. It was over 20 meters long, its entire body covered in scales, with dozens of pairs of small wings on its back. It looked very strange. After scanning it, I discovered it was actually an iron-winged lizard tamed by the dragon race, and its level had reached 90, with total attributes as high as 4.5 million. Iron-winged lizards hold an extremely special status in the dragon race's world. Only dragon race warriors with atavistic bloodlines are worthy of such a combat mount. Its presence here suggests that a dragon race warrior with an atavistic bloodline is pulling the strings from the shadows. However, before I could track them down, the iron-winged lizard lunged at me once again. Using my superior skills, I gradually gained the upper hand. Just then, the space in the distance suddenly began to fluctuate. A space-time tunnel slowly emerged in the sky nearby. 2 dragon figures flew out from the tunnel. One of them was the dragon commander who had fled in disgrace earlier, although it also possessed an ancestral bloodline. Its current strength was far from enough to control a level 90 iron-winged lizard. Clearly, the other dragon warrior was the true master of the iron-winged lizard. He called me a peerless genius among humans, saying even their carefully prepared formation couldn't take me down, and that I truly deserved his personal intervention. A flash of arrogance crossed its eyes as it spoke. As a knight with an ancestral bloodline, its level was as high as 88, only one step away from becoming a dragon king. Once it becomes a dragon king, it will become an incredibly powerful figure in the dragon race, with a status second only to the dragon emperor. It felt like it could easily take me out. But Antares, standing nearby, knew my strength very well. So it whispered a warning, that I was very strong, and that I needed to be careful. But Aragos was dismissive. He said I was just a level 53 human. and wondered how much strength I could possibly have. But to show respect, he said he would use all his power to defeat me. After saying that, he let out a roar, shouting, "Ancestral Awakening." The next second, a massive phantom of a divine dragon appeared in the sky. I was stunned the moment I saw this, because its form was incredibly similar to the divine dragons of Huaxia. I didn't expect that just by defeating 2 dragon warriors with ancestral bloodlines, I would attract the Dragon Emperor, the ruler of the dragon world, to personally attack me. It turned out that at the moment Aragos underwent his ancestral transformation. Seeing my shocked expression, Aragos immediately became smug. "Are you shocked by my power? This is the ancestor of our dragon race. One day, I will fully transform into a divine dragon." Although his words left me feeling suspicious, I couldn't afford to dwell on it right now. I had to end this fight before my power-gathering skill went on cooldown. So, I charged at Aragos with my longsword. But Aragos just grinned when he saw me coming. Just in time. "I'll show you the gap between us right now." As he spoke, the divine dragon phantom merged with him. His attributes surged instantly. An incredible aura radiated from his entire body. Then, he swung his weapon and charged straight at me. The moment our weapons collided, the surrounding space felt like it was being torn apart by the sheer force. I was sent flying by the overwhelming power. Yet, Aragos didn't back down even an inch. Clearly, his strength and constitution were far superior to mine. After all, the level difference between us was undeniable. Since I couldn't match him with raw strength alone, then I'll make up for it with my advantage in combat skills. So I quickly retreated and equipped myself with a layer of bone armor. Aragos was hot on my heels. But just as it was about to launch an attack, countless purple lights suddenly exploded all over its body. At the same time, a dense rain of arrows fell upon it like raindrops. Seeing that there was no sign of panic on my face, but instead, I even had a hint of a contemptuous smile, Aragos became incredibly furious. As a dragon knight with ancestral bloodlines, it had never been looked down upon like this. Now, it was being despised by a human professional only at level 50-something. So it decided to stop holding back, preparing to use its strongest power to completely crush me. Even though my power wasn't as great as its own, its attack power was much weaker than the previous formation. It didn't even reach the pseudo-god level. Forget about killing me. Even if I just stood there and let it hit me, it wouldn't be able to scratch me at all. You see, my current constitution attribute is as high as 1 million, even if it could cause me some damage. My passive skill, damage transfer, and the Lich General's healing are not just for show. Then, with a light tap of my finger, the skill's Aging Curse and Bone Prison erupted simultaneously. Aragos was instantly frozen in midair, unable to move. At the same time, the Strengthening Soldier's skill on the back of my left hand suddenly activated. In an instant, the attributes of the Undead Legion surged. But just as the skeletons were preparing to attack, despite being restrained, Aragos flashed a wicked smile. Then, a light belonging to a primordial rune bloomed on the back of its hand. In the next second, its aura surged sharply. Immediately after, the skeletal prison surrounding its body shattered instantly. I was stunned by the sight. I didn't expect the opponent to actually possess a primordial rune as well. I just don't know the specific function of its primordial rune. I could only see Aragos' body size rapidly increasing. It didn't stop until its size had increased tenfold. Then, Aragos laughed maniacally. "How can you fight me with those pathetic, broken bones of yours?" Laughing wildly, it swung its long sword and clashed with the skeleton berserker's great blade. In the next second, its laughter stopped abruptly. It was as if it had seen something unbelievable. It didn't expect that even with a tenfold increase in attack power, its strength would only be slightly superior to the skeleton berserker. Although it successfully knocked the first few skeleton berserkers away, more massive blades had already landed on its body. Its defense was instantly broken. It swung its massive blade, continuously slashing away the charging skeleton berserkers. However, these skeleton berserkers seemed endless, constantly leaving wounds on its body. By now, Aragos had fallen into a frenzy. It tried to break through the encirclement to kill me. At this moment, it finally realized the gap between us. So, it hurriedly sought help from Yanalius. But as someone who had already been defeated by me, Yanalius simply didn't have the strength to turn the tide of battle. So they unhesitatingly activated their ancestral bloodlines, trying to break through the encirclement. But how could I let them escape? Every second, I summoned a venomous lich glowing with green light. Aragos' expression changed drastically. He finally realized that the poison at the entrance of the secret realm came from the venomous lich before him. He knew very well that with his strength, he couldn't withstand it. Before he could react, The venomous lich streaked like a green beam and slammed into the two of them. Immediately after, a silent explosion swept out. But just as the poison was about to erode them, a crystal amulet suddenly popped out from Aragos's body. A dragon's roar echoed from within. Then, the crystal amulet flashed with golden light. Then, a space-time tunnel slowly appeared in front of them. A giant hand reached out and pulled them inside. That giant hand emerged from the tunnel again and slapped towards me. Suddenly, a massive dragon claw appeared between heaven and earth. A terrifying power swept in. The power of this strike was comparable to a single finger from the Demon Emperor. Clearly, its true form is the strongest existence among the dragon race. Although with my current strength, I have no ability to contend with it. The only way out is to teleport away. But I want to see just how big the gap is between me and the Dragon Emperor. At this moment, the strengthening skill has 5 seconds left. Within these 5 seconds, the Undead Legion is at its strongest state. 33 Lich generals protected me behind them. Then, I took out the Law Divine Crystal of the Lightning God from my storage space. Although I'm not sure how strong the Liches summoned by it will be, but I'm certain the Lich I summon will be much stronger than the Venomous Lich. At the same time, the skeleton berserkers charged toward the Dragon Emperor's giant palm with all their might. But before they could even get close, they were crushed into pieces by the sheer power radiating from that palm. In the face of the Dragon Emperor's absolute strength, my comprehensive connection talent became completely useless. But just then, a series of blinding purple lights illuminated the entire secret realm. An elemental lich, completely shrouded in lightning, appeared right in front of me. Its aura was extremely chaotic, as if it could explode at any moment. And the moment it appeared, a terrifying bolt of purple lightning struck the Dragon Emperor's palm. In the next second, its aura weakened instantly. Then, it suddenly retreated back into the space-time tunnel. A second later, the lightning lich exploded violently. Clearly, the lightning lich's self-destruction had injured the Dragon Emperor on the other side. I couldn't tell just how serious the injury was. However, since the Dragon Emperor's attack came through the space-time tunnel, its power had already been greatly diminished. Otherwise, even if I summoned the lightning lich, I wouldn't have stood a chance. And after this battle, I realized that the liches summoned by the Law God crystals are much stronger than those from the venomous essence blood. Each Law God crystal contains unimaginable power. The elemental liches summoned by them are so powerful that even the Dragon Emperor can't gain the slightest advantage. Then I began summoning skeletons to replenish my recently lost Undead Legion. Meanwhile, in the Dragon Emperor's palace in the Dragon Realm, Aragos and Eunalius were scorched to charcoal by lightning. If the Dragon Emperor hadn't stepped in to protect them, they would likely have been turned to ash. The Dragon Emperor then looked at them with an angry gaze. Rest for a few days before returning to the Wind and Thunder continent. You must regain control of the secret realm. As he spoke, he threw a high-quality crystal talisman in front of Aragos. If you encounter Lin Mayu again, activate this talisman immediately. Aragos took the talisman and nodded repeatedly. After the two left, the Dragon Emperor's gaze became thoughtful. He didn't expect that kid to actually possess the Law Divine Crystal of the Lightning God. It seems the one who fell a few days ago was indeed the Lightning God. What exactly did the gods encounter back then? Why did most of the gods die? The Lightning God had already half-stepped into the level of a high-ranking god. Even he couldn't survive. It's shocking, truly shocking. I didn't expect that just by revealing my skill traits and elemental immunity, I would shock Antares, whom even the Transcendent Ones fear. As it happened, right after I repelled the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Realm, I soon discovered a blood pool deep within the secret realm. Clearly, the secret to the dragons creating puppets lies within. So, I immediately cast a detection spell. Upon investigation, I found this blood pool is called the derivative blood pool, which has the ability to replicate living beings through flesh and blood. After seeing the information about the blood pool, I couldn't help but feel curious. Then I should be able to replicate one as well. With this assumption in mind, I dropped a single drop of fresh blood into the pool. To my surprise, the blood pool actually reacted. The blood pool began to boil violently. The blood pool began to boil violently. Soon, a puppet that looked exactly like me appeared in the pool. But just as I was about to test its strength, the puppet's body suddenly shattered. Seeing this, I found my answer. Then, I took a bottle from my storage space and collected some water from the blood pool. I planned to show it to Ming Anwen once I returned to the Xinxiao Empire, where I could ask Antares. With his strength, he'd definitely know what this thing is. There was joy in Antares' eyes. Kid, you're finally willing to come back. As soon as he spoke, a space-time portal appeared before him. 2.5 seconds later, I stepped out of the portal. He was intentionally pretending not to care. Seeing this, I found it hilarious. This old guy has lived for who knows how many years. Yet now he's acting like a child. He's only doing this because he's afraid I'll try to overcharge him during the trade. So, I played along and intentionally shouted, "Wake up! I've brought back the Dragon Ball you wanted." Hearing this, Antares finally slowly opened his eyes and gave a soft hum. Then, it casually inhaled and swallowed the Dragon Pearl. I have to say, this guy's acting is truly spectacular. A scene this amazing deserves to be watched on high-end equipment. Afterward, it handed over the final payment for the transaction to me. Exactly 100 pieces of solidified fire god essence blood fell into my storage space. This essence blood allows me to summon the flame lich a full 100 times. That is equivalent to unleashing 100 attacks at the pseudo-god level. However, ever since I obtained the corpse of the venom god, because the liches summoned with the venom god's essence blood are even more powerful. Just then, Antares said softly, "You have passed my test. Now, we can discuss the real transaction." But before it could even mention the terms, I interrupted it. "Before we talk business, I have a few questions I need answered." Hearing this, Antares looked somewhat disdainful. "If you want my answers, you'll have to pay a price. Or you can consider it a deposit for our second transaction." "No." Without a moment's hesitation, I rejected its terms. Hearing this, Antares suddenly released a violent aura, staring me down intensely. "Do you know who you're talking to? No one has ever dared to set conditions with this venerable one. But I wasn't afraid in the slightest. Not before. But now I am. You said I passed your test. But you didn't pass mine." Antares, who had just been furious, was instantly stunned by my words. Then, it burst into loud laughter. "Your test?" I ignored its question and continued. "Didn't you claim to be all-knowing?" Antares replied proudly. "Of course. There is nothing in this world that this venerable one doesn't know." I shook my head. "I asked you a question during our first transaction, but the answer you gave me was wrong. So, I'll have to consider whether we can proceed with the second transaction." Hearing this, Antares let out a sudden dragon roar. "Impossible. This venerable one has never been wrong." Looking at its reaction, I knew it had taken the bait. I decided to strike while the iron was hot and continued. "What if you were wrong?" Antares leaned its head closer and said seriously, "If this venerable one is wrong, from now on, I will answer any question you have." Antares was full of confidence. It had lived for countless years. Although its main body had never moved from the center of the core area, it had witnessed the passage of history, and had even existed before the establishment of the Xinxia Empire. So, it believed its answers could never be wrong. Then, I took out a bottle containing black powder. Antares immediately approached, curiously peering at the contents of the bottle. It was actually corpse rot poison. Seeing this, Antares quickly pulled away from me. "Are you insane?" But I just gave a calm smile. Antares nodded. "Corpse rot poison comes from a terrifying forbidden skill. It really is incurable. But after a while, I hadn't been eroded by the poison at all. That's impossible. How are you not poisoned?" Little did it know, I possess a passive skill that grants immunity to all abnormal statuses. And now, my poison element immunity has reached 100%. Whether corpse rot poison belongs to the poison element, or is considered an abnormal status, it wouldn't work on me at all. And to make it truly admit defeat, I summoned a skeleton and poured corpse poison onto it. Lacking any immunity, the skeleton was quickly poisoned. Black gas, unique to corpse poison, began to rise from its body. Immediately after, I summoned a lich general. The moment the lich general released a purification skill, the corpse poison on the skeleton vanished instantly. Seeing this, Antares looked completely incredulous. "This is absolutely impossible." Seeing its reaction, I smiled. The facts were right in front of him. Hearing this, Antares let out another strange cry. "Impossible. There is no way such a skill exists. Besides, the limit for human elemental immunity is only 90%. How can you possibly have 100% immunity?" I shrugged my shoulders and said helplessly, "Just because you don't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist." Antares was instantly speechless. At that moment, it finally realized it wasn't omniscient. Finally, Antares bowed its head to me in defeat. It admitted there were still things in this world it didn't know. Since that's the case, I'll answer any questions you have from now on. Then, I asked it about the derivative monsters. I also told it that the Dragon Clan had created a derivative blood pool to replicate puppets. Hearing this, Antares let out a cold laugh. "I've known about this for a long time. It's practically useless. And I can tell you a secret. The Dragon Clan is looking for death. They're truly asking for it." And I didn't press further. Next, I brought out the Venom God's corpse to ask about its use. But the moment Antares saw the corpse, it was shocked once again. "You brat. Do you even know what you've obtained?" Its tone became somewhat serious. Then, an incredible aura emanated from the body, enveloping the area. This is a complete divine corpse. Its aura is something even the Xinxia Tower might not be able to hide. Besides, gods usually don't leave corpses behind, because they are aggregations of elements. It's very difficult for them to actually perish. Even if they do fall, they leave behind a glimmer of life. Stumbling upon even a limb of a god is considered incredible luck. No one has ever obtained a complete divine corpse like you have. I suspect you might actually be the bastard child of the heavens. As for what a god's corpse is useful for, you'll naturally find out once you've grown to a certain level. They're attacking. They're attacking. I finally couldn't help but strike at the professionals from Sakura Country. I even fought my way directly into Sakura Country itself. It all started just a moment ago. I used a skill that counters corpse poison to shatter Antares' perception, and I successfully obtained its promise. I wanted to take this opportunity to ask about the use of divine corpses, but it didn't tell me the specific purpose. Then, I took out an electric law divine crystal and continued to ask, "What about this one?" Antares just gave it a casual glance. Its value even exceeds an entire set of legendary equipment. Antares then asked how a kid like me managed to find the lightning god to get this crystal. After hearing my words, Antares sighed with emotion. Antares called her a foolish woman. He had told her not to go, but she insisted. In the end, she ended up falling. Even though there was clearly a chance for her to be resurrected, she chose to cling to that last shred of her true soul. Speaking of this, Antares felt both regret and anger. He remarked that these gods are all so stubbornly obsessed. It was clear that it had a good relationship with a lightning god. So, I decisively ended the topic and started asking about the ancient city of Xinxia. But Antares told me that the history of the ancient city of Xinxia was even older than itself. Even Antares didn't know how long it had existed in this world. At this moment, I couldn't help but feel an even deeper respect for the ancient city. I felt that it must be hiding some extraordinary secrets. Afterward, Antares and I reached another deal. It needs me to go to the Dragon King Temple dungeon to retrieve another dragon pearl. However, the minimum requirement for this dungeon is level 70, and its rules are different from the previous Thunder Burial Canyon. Even the terrifyingly powerful Antares couldn't send me in as I am now. As for the reward, it promised to reveal some secrets about becoming a transcendent god. Once finished, I activated the fixed-point teleportation stone and returned to my courtyard. Bai Yuan, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, was as happy as an old father. He said I was finally back. He told me he'd heard from Meng Anwen that I'd obtained another primordial rune. He said that although some human practitioners have obtained 2 primordial runes, they are currently only at the level of top-tier god-level powerhouses. But he believed my achievements would surely far surpass theirs, and that I might even become a transcendent god. After saying that, he began to ask me what I had experienced in the lower space. So, I recounted everything that happened to me. Hearing my story, Bai Yuan was quite shocked. He said that he and Yin Fengzi had seen that giant venomous flood dragon before. He even mentioned that the two of them couldn't kill it even when they joined forces. He couldn't believe it ended up dying at my hands. Meanwhile, Teacher Meng said with a smile that my experience could definitely be written into textbooks. But at that moment, I spoke solemnly to Meng Anwen, asking him to please open the Xinxia Tower and activate the formation. Seeing how serious I was, Meng Anwen's expression also turned solemn. I immediately summoned the Xinxia Tower and brought the 3 of them inside. The interior of the Xinxia Tower was covered with layers of formations. It could isolate all traces of aura here. Then, I took out the corpse of the Venom God. Although most of its aura had been sealed by Antares, it was still far superior to the previous divine finger fragment. The moment they saw the corpse, Meng Anwen and Bai Yuan gasped in shock. This was actually an entire deity's corpse. This is the corpse of the Venom God, and it's said that its rank is a mid-level deity. Its strength is not inferior to mine or old Bai's. Lin Moyu, you've really opened our eyes. You should know that Jiang Yi's divine finger fragment was enough to shake the entire human race's world. Yet you've obtained a complete divine corpse. Hearing this, I smiled. Can you guys comprehend the laws within it? But Meng Anwen shook his head. We know nothing about the laws of the venom element. Meng Anwen and Bai Yuan's eyes instantly lit up. Holy crap. This is truly a rare treasure. Even within our entire human race, only the old man from the God Creation Academy has a wind element law god crystal. Beside him, Manhwa nodded. For us cultivators, both Bai Yuan and I have lightning element skills. With it, we might be able to comprehend even more. Hearing this, I took a lightning element god crystal from my storage space. Since this crystal is useful to my teachers, please accept these two as a gift from your disciple. Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen looked at each other. They could feel my sincerity and determination. These law god crystals might be my greatest trump card in the future. A day after I returned, a teleportation array suddenly appeared in the skies over the Sakura country. Bai Yuan and I stepped out of the array. Our goal was to wipe out the members of the Black Dragon Society who were colluding with the Abyss Demons. Less than half a minute after we arrived. Soon, a large number of top-tier professionals surrounded us. His god-level aura erupted violently. The terrifying pressure slammed every professional in the air back down to the ground. They were absolutely horrified. They never expected the visitor to be a god-level powerhouse. Just then, a low voice slowly spoke. So, God Bai has graced us with his presence. We failed to welcome you properly. Please forgive us. But Bai Yuan wasn't intimidated in the slightest. Old man Yamamoto. There's no need for all this politeness. Today, I'm not looking for trouble with Sakura country, but with the Black Dragon Society. Hearing this, Yamamoto couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The incident in Kimchi country was still fresh in his mind, whereby Yuan had almost wiped out the whole country single-handedly. Yamamoto then asked cautiously, "May I ask how the Black Dragon Society offended Lord Bai? I'll have them apologize to you." But Bai Yuan only gave Yamamoto no a glance. They didn't need to apologize to me, because anyone who colludes with the Abyss Demons deserves to die. Hearing this, Yamamoto no trembled. He didn't expect the Black Dragon Society to actually collude with the Abyss Demons. You see, Bai Yuan hates the Abyss Demons intensely. Back then, Kimchi country was nearly destroyed because of them. But since the Black Dragon Society is the strongest guild in Sakura country, he couldn't just ignore them. So he braced himself and asked, "May I ask what evidence Lord Bai has to prove this?" He clung to his last shred of hope, trying to reason with Bai Yuan. "Do I need evidence?" Yamamoto No's expression became incredibly grim. He realized his last hope had completely vanished. Even if Sakura country was dissatisfied, they just had to deal with it. To ensure the citizens of Sakura country wouldn't be implicated, Yamamoto No could only helplessly point toward the Black Dragon Society's location. Seeing this, Bai Yuan smiled. Just then, 3 figures soared into the sky. Each of them radiated a god-level aura. Although Sakura country is just a tiny nation, it still has a few god-level beings. However, their auras were far inferior to Bai Yuan's. At most, they were only at level 91 or 92. Their expressions immediately changed drastically. They didn't even dare to say another word, because they were all well aware of Bai Yuan's strength and brutality. Even if they all attacked together, they wouldn't be a match. Soon, we arrived above the headquarters of the Black Dragon Society. A terrifying pressure suddenly descended. A god-level aura permeated this room. At that moment, the door slowly opened. 2 people walked out side by side. Their appearances were identical. Bai Yuan was somewhat shocked when he saw them. He had clearly killed Abe and Jetsu long ago. Yet, she had somehow mysteriously resurrected. The look in Abe and Jetsu's eyes as she stared at Bai Yuan was incredibly cold and sinister. It wasn't the look of a human. Bai Yuan. Are you surprised to see me alive? I had actually managed to slay a god level on my OG from Sakura country as a mere beginner. I even instantly killed Sakura country's guardian divine beast, Yamada no Orochi. It turns out that just now, Bai Yuan and I had stormed into Sakura country to wipe out the Black Dragon Society. But Bai Yuan soon realized something. It seems I was too soft on you back then. That your brother actually refined you into a Shikigami. But what surprised him was that the Abe and Jetsu before him was different from other Shikigami. Once they become Shikigami, they are no longer human. They shouldn't retain any memories or thoughts from their previous lives. It actually still retains all its memories and hatred from before. Just then, Abe and Jetsu let out a chilling laugh. The grudge of being killed back then will be repaid tenfold today. Hearing this, Bai Yuan burst into laughter. You think you're worthy? You weren't even my match back then. Now that you're a Shikigami, you're even less qualified to face me. Abe and Jetsu didn't say anything more. Meanwhile, Abe Inyo beside it turned his gaze toward me. You must be the youngest divine General Lin of the Xinxia Empire. My son sent some information back before he died. Hearing this, I finally understood. It turns out the Abe Yoshino I killed in the lower space was his son. Right then, Abe Inyo stomped his foot hard. A massive barrier suddenly appeared the next second. It completely enveloped the entire manor. Then, with a grim expression, Abe Inyo spoke. You killed my son and still think you can destroy my Black Dragon Society? Today, you'll stay here forever. As he spoke, Shikigami began to emerge from behind him. Including his brother Abe and Jetsu, there were 8 Shikigami in total. My pupils shrank at the sight of the other Shikigami, because all 8 of them were actually god level, and 2 of them were even the bodies of Abyss Demon Kings. I must say, Abe Inyo's strength is beyond imagination. But seeing this, Bai Yuan wasn't panicked at all. Instead, he even showed a hint of a smile. You really have conspired with the Abyss Demons. Even a recently fallen Demon King can serve as your Shikigami. Hearing this, Abe Inyo just sneered. So what if you know? Once I finish you off, this news won't get out. Wait, something's wrong. Why isn't this following the original plot? That's right, I'm going to change that tragic story. With a wave of his hand, he ordered the Shikigami behind him to attack. His 8 Shikigami have all been trained to level 92. Its combat power even exceeds the other 7 Shikigami. Even Bai Yuan, who was at the peak of level 95, didn't dare to be careless. With that, he released a powerful aura and engaged the 8 Shikigami in battle. I, meanwhile, looked over at Abe Inyo. Everyone knows the best way to deal with Shikigami is to take out the Onmyoji, since most of an Onmyoji's power is concentrated in their summons. But I didn't see it that way. Especially against Abe Inyo, who was already level 93. I couldn't afford to be careless. At his level. That's when Abe Inyo looked at me. As expected of the youngest god general of the human race. Your potential is impressive. You're qualified to become my 9th Shikigami. He raised a finger and fired a beam of light at me. The beam was far faster than my reaction speed. It hit me dead on. Seeing this, Abe Inyo smirked. You've fallen for my soul-binding curse. Now, just surrender quietly. But before he could even finish, he was left speechless. I acted as if nothing had happened, completely unaffected by the curse. Impossible. How can you be fine? Abe Inyo shouted in disbelief. Even Antares would be envious. Seeing his shocked expression, I chuckled. What a coincidence. I know how to use soul attacks too. After saying that, I raised my hand and threw out a soul flame. Abe Inyo immediately let out a scream. He immediately used another skill. The next second, a large number of runes appeared on his body. These runes are called Onmyoji talismans. And the runes on Abe Inyo's body covered almost his entire body. The runes instantly transformed into invisible armor. Not only did it protect his body, but it also protected his soul. I wasn't surprised at all. As a god-level powerhouse, how could he not have a life-saving skill? Then, I raised my hand and summoned my entire Undead Legion. Tens of thousands of skeleton berserkers raised their great blades and charged forward. Even though Abe Inyo had runes protecting him, he was still forced back by the skeleton berserkers. Then, Abe Inyo unleashed a new skill. A massive amount of runes flew out from his hands. The entire manor was illuminated by these runes. At this time, there were still over 100 Black Dragon Society members in the manor. Among them, there were more than 20 top-tier professionals over level 80. However, they had long been stunned by this massive battle. They knew very well that this battle was not something they could interfere in. But just then, a large number of runes appeared beneath their feet. The skill, Inyang Fate Lock. Abe Inyo shouted loudly. The shackles formed by runes imprisoned everyone in place. Seeing this, they instantly panicked. What are you doing? They began to struggle desperately. But soon, all their cries turned into pure terror. Because the chains were absorbing their power. Even more rune chains soared into the sky. They locked up the surrounding skeletons, making it impossible for them to escape. The skeleton berserker tried to hack through these rune chains. But these chains were incredibly sturdy and difficult to break. Meanwhile, the runes on Abe Inyo's body grew even brighter. These runes began to form a shield around him. It blocked all attacks from the skeleton archmage and the sharpshooter. It's useless. You can't break my Inyang Fate Lock. No matter how many summons you have, it's futile. Because they are just too weak. I didn't say a word. I just lightly pointed my finger. The aging curse skill suddenly descended. Immediately after, the strengthened soldier skill was activated. In an instant, the Undead Legion seemed to undergo a complete transformation. Their strength increased several times over in a heartbeat. The skeleton berserker, who had been struggling against the rune chains, cut right through them with a single strike. Seeing this, Abe Inyo's expression changed drastically. Although he had long heard that I possessed rune skills, but he didn't expect this rune skill to be so terrifying. It could actually boost the strength of all my summons. And the increase wasn't just a small amount. Now, these skeletons were strong enough to break through the rune chains. This meant they were capable of hurting him. Since his Onmyoji class was a mage type, his constitution and defense were far inferior to a warrior's. As a horde of skeleton berserkers rushed him, Abe Inyo quickly formed a series of hand seals. Shikigami Fusion. Ultimate Summoning. A massive formation appeared in the sky, while Abe Inyo appeared right in the center. Then, a portal to another dimension opened up in the center of the formation. A terrifying aura began to leak out from within. Seeing this, Bai Yuan's expression turned solemn. He had heard about the ultimate skill of the Sakura country's Onmyoji, which is said to be able to summon the legendary Yamada no Orochi. But throughout history, only 2 people had ever mastered it. I didn't expect you to be the third, Bai Yuan said. As he spoke, a giant snake head slowly emerged from the formation. Meanwhile, I took out the essence blood of the venom god and began my own summoning. A flash of green light erupted, and a venom lich appeared. Bai Yuan smashed the barrier with a few punches and quickly led me out. Yamada no Orochi let out a scream and retreated. Abe Inyo was completely shocked by this. He didn't expect his summoning ritual to be interrupted. Amidst the shock, he found his body starting to rot rapidly. Clearly, the toxic lich's poison gas was taking effect, even though it was a level 93 mid-god level entity. Moreover, he was just a mage class with the weakest constitution and defense. And just like that, one of Sakura country's rare god-level Onmyoji fell. Meanwhile, Yamamoto Yano outside the barrier was pale as ash. He didn't expect the Black Dragon Society to actually be in league with the Abyss. I never thought that during my first time leaving the academy to level up in the Kunlun Mountains, I'd be mocked as a rookie by practitioners from other academies. They even thought my profession was only fit for farming in the countryside. But once my identity was completely exposed, the people who were just mocking me were instantly terrified, kneeling and begging for mercy. It turns out that right after Bai Yuan and I dealt with Abe Inyo, Yamamoto Yano, who was guarding outside the barrier, panicked instantly. By now, the Black Dragon Society's crimes of colluding with the Abyss were confirmed. His biggest worry now was whether Sakura country would be implicated. But after Bai Yuan came out of the small villa, he only gave him a cold glance. Abe Inyo is dead. After saying that, he took me and left. Just then, 3 god-level experts from Sakura country flew over. After learning what had happened, their faces were filled with humiliation. Being attacked like this by Bai Yuan, they didn't even dare to utter a single word. This was a complete slap in the face to Sakura country. Even if they wanted to stop him, they couldn't. Soon, this incident caused a massive uproar across the world. Some people thought Bai Yuan was being too overbearing, forcing his way into Sakura country without any evidence. However, many others agreed with his actions. Anyone colluding with Abyss demons deserves what they get. By then, Bai Yuan and I had returned to the Zishan courtyard. But I was feeling worried about what we had just done. I immediately asked Bai Yuan if this would cause Sakura country to go to war with us. How much strength do those guys even have? I could wipe them all out by myself. Meng Anwen chuckled from the side. Don't talk so big. No one can take down Sakura country except for the old man. I looked puzzled upon hearing this. Wasn't it said that the god-level experts in Sakura country were weak? Do they have hidden experts? Meng Anwen nodded. Once the god of will awakens, it can exert level 98 combat power within 24 hours. It's only slightly weaker than a half-step transcendent. But Sakura country won't use this trump card easily, because every time it's used, it takes at least 10 years to recover. I was slightly shocked by this, but I suppose they would only use it when the country is facing destruction. Next, I had to raise my level to 70, then enter the primordial secret realm to preserve my rune skills. So, I asked Bai Yuan if there were any dungeons suitable for me, but he told me that the dungeon hall no longer had any dungeons that suited me. Experience is secondary, but I'm quite the opposite. I don't care about equipment at all. However, Bai Yuan continued, there are some in the outside world. In the northwest of the Xinxiao Empire, there are several special dungeons. To the northwest of the Xinxiao Empire, there is a special dungeon, called the Kunlun Divine Palace. This dungeon is unique because it has a 3-stage structure, consisting of the mountain base, the mountainside, and the summit. Each section contains its own dungeon, at levels 55, 65, and 75 respectively. You can only qualify to enter the next dungeon by clearing the lower level one. And behind the summit dungeon, there is even a hidden one. That dungeon is God tier. However, the requirements to enter it are extremely high. You need to achieve a rating of 100 in each of the first 3 dungeons. The rating is based on the time taken to clear the dungeon, your monster killing efficiency, and various other factors like the number of people entering. While this requirement is nearly impossible for other practitioners, Then, Meng Anwen teleported me to Kunlun City at the foot of the Kunlun Mountains. Many practitioners had already gathered here, but as I walked through the streets, I felt completely out of place. Almost all practitioners were wearing gear and clothing specific to their profession. While I looked like a lifestyle profession practitioner, I didn't pay it any mind, though. Instead, I looked up toward the distant Kunlun Mountains outside the city. The majestic Kunlun Mountains stood 10,000 meters high, and the range stretched for thousands of miles. There are many dungeons and secret realms within, the most famous being the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. Suddenly, I sensed a familiar aura in the Kunlun Mountains. It was an aura unique to a deity, or perhaps a god once existed there. Suddenly, a strange voice came from beside me. "Young man, come over and have a drink with me." I didn't originally intend to pay him any attention, but after seeing the emblem on his clothes, I immediately changed my mind. He reminded me of my best friend, Gao Yang. They are both students of Jiangning Academy, but we've been separated since the college entrance exams. It's already been a year since I last saw him. I wonder how he's doing at the academy. So, I took this opportunity to ask the middle-aged man for news about Gao Yang. But after thinking for a long time, he couldn't recall any student named Gao Yang at the academy. However, the female healer beside him suddenly thought of something. "You couldn't be talking about that sword and shield knight, could you? I heard he had an accident during a freshman trial. They say his injuries were quite serious. Even the academy's best healer couldn't cure him." Hearing this, my body shuddered. You see, freshman trials at the academy are usually very safe. Plus, the teachers always look after the candidates. Could it be that Gao Yang was framed? At that thought, my fists clenched involuntarily. I immediately continued my questioning. Didn't the academy try to hire a better healer? The man shook his head. The best healer in the academy is already level 85. There are only a few in the entire empire, and ordinary people simply can't afford them. Hearing this, I told them anxiously, "Help me find out where Gao Yang has gone." By now, my tone had changed. It was no longer a request, but more like a command. The expressions of the group began to turn displeased. They felt that since I was just a mere life-type profession holder, I had no right to give them orders. If it weren't for Feng Ziliu's sake, I wouldn't even have the right to sit here. Go and find out quickly. So they all took out their communicators to ask their classmates at the academy. After a moment, they finally got a response. It turned out the academy couldn't treat Gao Yang, so they gave him some money to go home and recover. As she spoke, the female healer's vision suddenly blurred. My figure had already vanished. The group was instantly stunned. Holy crap. What just happened? We didn't just see a ghost, did we? A few seconds later, Feng Ziliu let out a sudden cry of surprise. If I'm not mistaken, he should be the #1 genius of our Xinxia Empire, Lin Moyu. Hearing this, everyone looked on in disbelief. Boss, are you sure you're not mistaken? How could a legendary figure like that possibly appear here? But Feng Ziliu shook his head. It's almost certainly not a mistake. God General Lin also completed his class change about a year ago. Most importantly, both he and Gao Yang are from Shihai City. After his analysis, the others immediately realized the truth. At the same time, they were relieved they hadn't crossed me just now. Otherwise, even if they had 10 lives, it wouldn't be enough to save them. Meanwhile, I was rushing back to Shihai City at top speed. After several consecutive teleports, it took me less than 5 minutes to arrive at Gao Yang's house. I saw Gao Yang lying weakly on his hospital bed. The once cheerful boy was now completely lifeless. Both of his legs had been cleanly severed, and even his hands were starting to wither. Seeing this, a wave of heartache instantly flooded my heart. But then, he forced a smile and said softly, "Why are you here, kid?" I ignored his words and demanded. He said in a raspy voice, "Telling you wouldn't have helped anyway. They said even a god-level healer might not be able to cure this." Hearing that, I let out a snort. "How do you know I don't have a way? But first, tell me how this happened." Then Gao Yang told me what happened. It turns out he fell into a swamp during the freshman trial. What's even weirder is that the wounds had actually healed themselves. After thinking for a moment, I gave him a bottle of venomous flood dragon marrow. But it didn't have any effect. It seemed the only option was to ask Bai Yuan and the others for help. I never expected that the soul-devouring beast, which once nearly destroyed the entire human world, would now become the source of power for me to reach the super god rank. Actually, just a moment ago, on the way, I used my communicator to tell Bai Yuan about the situation. Because of this, Bai Yuan even specially invited a god-level healer. Soon, 3 god-level powerhouses gathered at Bai Shen's courtyard. However, after examining Gao Yang's injuries, they were all puzzled. Meng Anwen shot a beam of light onto Gao Yang. Gao Yang's vitality immediately increased significantly. But a moment later, it rapidly declined again. Seeing that it wasn't working, Shu Yaoshan also gave Gao Yang a potion. But the result was the same as before. None of them could figure out what was happening. It's truly strange. It's as if there's something inside him constantly devouring his vitality. And no matter how much vitality he has, it's absorbed completely in an instant. But judging by its devouring speed, it could easily suck him dry in an instant. But why has it let him live until now? Could it be that the thing inside wants to parasitize his body long-term? If so, let's lure it out to see what it actually is. With that, Meng Anwen activated the Xinxia Tower to envelop Gao Yang. Immediately, Gao Yang's soul was pulled out. He fell into a state of apparent death. The purpose was to make that thing think its host was dead, forcing it to come out of Gao Yang's body on its own. Sure enough, the next second, a palm-sized unknown creature flew out. But as soon as it appeared, it was trapped in midair by the Xinxia Tower, unable to move. Its shape was very strange, looking like a big-headed, wolf-like beast. Seeing its appearance, Shu Yao God said with a look of confusion, "What is this thing? I've never seen anything like it before." However, seeing its appearance, Meng Anwen's expression changed instantly. It's a soul-devouring beast. I didn't expect any of them to still exist in this world. I could tell from their expressions that this was no small matter. Then, Bai Yuan took out his communicator and ordered a lockdown of the entire Jiangning province. I looked at him, confused. Is this really that serious? If things go wrong, it could be a total catastrophe. Over 1,000 years ago, a soul-devouring beast disaster broke out in the human world. It almost wiped out the entire human race. Soul-devouring beasts don't have physical bodies themselves. Once they possess a person, they are incredibly difficult to eliminate. They hide within the souls of their hosts. The only reason your friend has survived until now is because the soul-devouring beast hasn't found a more suitable host yet. After all, Gao Yang is still quite weak. There isn't much benefit in devouring his soul. The most important thing now is to find a way to eliminate them. But there is very little information about soul-devouring beasts circulating in the outside world. Perhaps only the royal family still keeps more detailed records. Speaking of records, I immediately thought of Antares. It has existed in this world for thousands of years longer than the Xinxia Empire. It might even know how to deal with them. So, we split up into two groups. Bai Yuan and the others went to the royal family to check the records, while I headed to the eternal battlefield to seek help from Antares. Half an hour later, I finally arrived at the core area of the upper space. Antares lazily lifted its eyelids and glanced at me. "What brings you here again, kid?" I told it that I was here to ask a few questions. Then, I told it about the appearance of the soul-devouring beasts. Hearing this, Antares was startled. "I say, how can your luck be so good? It's one thing that you got a hidden class that I've never seen before during your job change. But your talent is also this strong. I even obtained 2 primordial runes. I even possess 2 medium godheads and divine positions. And now, the soul-devouring beast has appeared. You kid really hit the jackpot." I was completely confused by its words. Then, Antares continued speaking. "But in reality, it is also a massive opportunity. However, it all depends on whether you can seize it. If you can't, it might become a massive catastrophe. Back then, your human race also had many god-level experts. By the time it was discovered, it was already too late. Once grown, the soul-devouring beasts were strong enough to contend with god-level experts. In the end, the human race had to pay a heavy price to achieve victory. After the soul-devouring beast disaster, abyss demons and the dragon race descended upon the human world again. If not for the sudden emergence of a group of geniuses within the human race. These geniuses only took about 10 years. Promoted from ordinary professionals to gods. The reason they've achieved such success is because of the soul-devouring beasts. Although these beasts devour souls and life force, if you can destroy them before they take shape, their soul power will merge into the professional's soul, and their attributes will increase as well. It also significantly raises the chance of awakening talents and professional sublimation during job advancement. There are 2 ways to deal with a soul-devouring beast. One is to take a soul-melding potion, and its soul power becomes a massive tonic for the host. While this method is beneficial for the human race, it offers no benefit to you. For any race. The most important thing is the emergence of top-tier powerhouses. Even if every human reached god level, it wouldn't compare to the appearance of a transcendent god, because the higher the level, the wider the gap between each tier. As Antares spoke, he leaned his head slightly closer. The appearance of this soul-devouring beast is your destiny. If you can seize this opportunity, you will surely become a transcendent god. Hearing this, I felt a surge of excitement. Seeing my reaction, Antares couldn't help but smile. He knew very well that his words had moved me. Then he continued. The second way to deal with a soul-devouring beast is to set up a soul-melding array. Don't you humans have a god-level formation master? Have them set up the formation. The soul-devouring beasts inside will be destroyed, but all the soul power from their deaths will converge onto you. Hearing this, I understood its plan. Thinking about this, I began to hesitate. However, seeing my hesitation, Antares continued. Although this would deprive many people of the chance to become god-level powerhouses, it would be beneficial to the entire human race. Also, do you know why there is a limit to the attributes enhanced by your primordial runes? It is because your soul power is not yet strong enough to become a transcendent god. Both your body and your soul must reach sufficient strength. At this point, a smile curled at the corner of Antares' mouth. As long as you agree to complete the next 3 deals for me, I will tell you how to set up the soul-melding grand array, and I'll give you the recipe for the soul-melding potion as well. Hearing this, I refused without hesitation. The price was simply too high. I was afraid I'd lose my life before I even had a chance to become a transcendent god. After all, I almost died in Burial Thunder Canyon last time. With that, I turned around to leave. Seeing this, Antares quickly called out to me. If 3 isn't working, how about 2? And so, after some friendly bargaining, we finally agreed on the price. I promised to go to the Dragon King's palace after my 3rd advancement to help it recover the dragon pearls. After I left, Antares muttered to himself. I didn't expect the soul-devouring beast to actually appear. I'm in. I'm finally in. But when I stepped into the dungeon alone, everyone mocked me, saying I was certain to die. Little did they know, my arrival was about to set a new record for the strongest feat in human history. As it turns out, just a moment ago, I successfully got the method to destroy the soul-devouring beast from Antares. But on the other side, the mind god couldn't find any useful information, but also came with a massive opportunity. However, they had no way of knowing exactly what it was. By this time, Gao Yang had mostly recovered after being treated by a god-level healer. Even his feet had grown back. Then, under his lead, Bai Yuan and the others found the swamp where the soul-devouring beast appeared. However, the soul-devouring beast hiding in the swamp couldn't be seen with the naked eye. So, Meng Anwen activated the Xinxia Tower to drain all the mud and rocks from the surrounding swamp. As it turned out, there was another space at the bottom of the swamp. Inside were countless soul-devouring beasts. Clearly, this was their nest. Seeing this, Bai Yuan and the others looked grim. Most importantly, they still hadn't found a way to destroy them. So they had no choice but to completely seal off the secret realm. While they were busy struggling to deal with the soul-devouring beasts, I rushed over following the location left by Bai Yuan. I nodded. Then I took out an ancient formation diagram and handed it to Meng Anwen, who was standing nearby. Antares gave this to me. It said this formation could eliminate the soul-devouring beasts, and it could also gather their soul power into me, giving me a chance to lay the foundation for becoming a transcendent god. Hearing this, Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen cried out in surprise. What did you say? Both of them stared intently at the formation diagram in my hands. The moment they saw the diagram, they knew it was extraordinary. The entire diagram exuded an ancient and vast aura. Then, Bai Yuan turned his excited gaze toward me and asked, did that person from the eternal battlefield say anything else? So I repeated Antares' exact words. Hearing this, Bai Yuan tried his best to suppress his excitement and spoke. It's right. Meng Anwen and I would do our best to help me complete the soul fusion ritual. And I could feel from its words. But this array is far too complex. And every soul has its limits. Your soul might not be able to withstand the soul power of all the soul-devouring beasts. So a backup plan is necessary. The soul fusion array must be prepared, with you acting as the array eye. Once you've absorbed enough soul power, the others can take the soul fusion potion to absorb the remaining soul power. This way, many geniuses can be created for the Xinxia Empire. But I just shook my head upon hearing that. For professionals, qualities like perseverance and character are much more important than talent. I've seen people with mediocre talent, but with noble character who do not fear death. I've also seen those from prestigious families, who are nothing but cowards. Such people are often the easiest to tempt. And even if they grow strong, they could end up becoming puppets for demons. Hearing this, Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen looked at each other and nodded. You're right. Let's do it your way. However, this formation needs to cover the entire Xinxia Empire. We'll need some time to make the necessary preparations. And we also need to check if anyone else has been parasitized by the soul-devouring beasts. In the meantime, you can go clear some dungeons to level up. So, I prepared to head back to the Kunlun Mountains. But before leaving, I had to transfer Gao Yang to the Xiaojing Academy. I immediately asked Bai Yuan if there was a way. You're the youngest divine general, and you have 3 top-tier divine teachers, including me and Elder Meng, backing you. So your influence is now on par with many divine-level practitioners. Never mind your friend Gao Yang. Even if you send a pig in there, the principal would have to bite the bullet and find a way to make it happen. On my way, I passed through Kuan City and ran into Feng Ziliu and his group again. I felt quite friendly toward them now. If it weren't for them, Gao Yang might have died. Thinking this, I gave a slight bow to Feng Ziliu. If you ever need my help in the future, feel free to find me. Seeing this, Feng Ziliu quickly waved his hand. No, please don't mention it. The others also looked incredibly nervous. After all, the person in front of them was no ordinary man. He was the youngest divine general of the entire human race. At only level 53, he has combat power comparable to a god. A big shot like that is far beyond the reach of people like them. Just being able to exchange a few words would be an incredible honor. The Kunlun Mountains are filled with many secret realms and dungeons. They range from low to high levels. Because of this, you can see many teams here with massive level gaps. Since I was dressed like a life-class profession holder, many professionals along the way were very curious about me. But what is he doing in the Kunlun Mountains? So, I guess he's here to gather herbs. Listening to their conversation, I found it quite funny, but I didn't pay it any mind. Then, I spread my lightning undead wings and soared into the air. In a flash, I vanished from the spot. The people who saw this were instantly stunned. Holy crap! What's going on? Aren't only top-tier professionals at level 70 able to fly? Everyone watched my retreating figure in a daze. A moment later, I arrived at the foot of the main Kunlun Peak. From here, all the way to the summit, flight is prohibited. I began walking towards the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. Young man, are you all alone? A knight in heavy armor was greeting me. He had a dozen or so professionals following him. The man immediately introduced himself to me. It turned out he was Kanan Gale, the younger brother of Kanan Knight Rain. He had also come here to clear the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. Seeing that I was alone, he wanted to invite me to join their party to clear the dungeon. But I shook my head and declined his invitation. In that case, Brother Lin, you should be careful. Recently, professionals from Sakura country have been active in the Kunlun Mountains. Many professionals have had conflicts with them, but I didn't pay them any mind. Although Sakura country's population isn't smaller than the Xinxia empires, and they have plenty of professionals, their talent is honestly mediocre. The entire country only has 3 to 5 god-level experts. The highest level among them is only 92. They're not even as good as the Sakura country, so I didn't consider them a threat at all. An hour later, I finally arrived at the main peak of Kunlun. Many professionals had already gathered here. Most of them were looking for suitable teams. Below the main peak, a dungeon entrance was slowly rotating. I immediately cast a detection spell on it. A second later, information about the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon appeared. That's it. This is the first stage of the 3-stage dungeon Bai Yuan mentioned, and you have to achieve a certain score to access higher-level dungeons. But those requirements are meaningless to me. Without hesitation, I stepped into the dungeon. The professionals nearby were instantly stunned. Am I seeing this right? It looked like someone just entered the dungeon alone, but the man standing next to him just smiled. This is the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. The difficulty inside is much higher than the hell difficulty of the same level. Going in alone is basically suicide. Little did they know, my score was about to shatter their understanding. It even left the world's top genius teams in despair. Just when everyone thought I had lost my mind, a middle-aged professional shared a secret with them. It turns out many people had tried solo runs in the past, but without exception, they all failed. The reason they risked everything was because of a legend. The legend says that soloing this dungeon grants special rewards. But after all these years, that's why this secret could only remain a legend. I've just been teleported into the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. The moment I appeared, an hourglass appeared in the sky. As long as I can take down the boss in the past before the sand runs out, I can earn an excellent rating and move on to the next stage of the dungeon. However, the entire dungeon is under an air restriction, so flying is impossible. All professionals have to explore their way through, and there are massive amounts of monsters blocking the path, which is exactly where the difficulty of this dungeon lies. It makes it even harder for professionals to get a high rating. But this isn't difficult for me. In fact, I see this place as a perfect spot for leveling up. After all, with my corpse explosion skill, I'm not afraid of numbers. Just then, a swarm of dark shadows rushed toward me. Leading the charge were several massive beasts. Speed boost. After scanning, I found that although they are level 55 enhanced elite monsters, their total attributes are comparable to Hell Leader class monsters of the same level. This would be almost impossible for professionals of the same level to handle, especially since these monsters have a 30% damage reduction trait and enhanced vitality. But to me, these attributes are completely insignificant. With a light tap of my finger, the aging curse suddenly descended. Immediately after, my poisonous starburst skill erupted. The two lights covered almost half of the dungeon. In an instant, a massive number of monsters were cursed, while poisonous gas simultaneously eroded their life force. Then, I summoned my Undead Legion and a poisonous lich. A poisonous aura appeared on all the skeletons. The toxic aura has the property of stacking infinitely with the toxic starburst. With the combination of two types of deadly poison, the monsters take over 350,000 damage every second. For level 55 monsters, this is a death sentence. Even with their life force enhancement trait, they still can't resist it. This scene looks like something I've seen in Yuan Ming Star. Massive amounts of kill notifications kept popping up, and my experience points started skyrocketing. Immediately after, the Undead Legion began to advance. Every monster in their path died under the poison aura without exception. The power of my own skill, Poison Starburst, is much weaker. Fortunately, I hold the corpse of the Venom God. The essence blood in its body can be used to summon the Poison Lich, and it can also be used to buff poison-type skills. However, I can only use it after my third advancement. So, the most important thing right now is to reach level 70 as quickly as possible. Before long, I had cleared all the monsters in the entire dungeon. It took less than 30 minutes from the moment I entered the dungeon. This achievement is something other professionals could hardly imagine. Now, I just need to defeat the final boss to challenge the next stage. This boss is a level 58 enhanced leader. Its traits are even more numerous than a world-class boss. It even resists all curses and crowd control. But that doesn't matter. In front of my Undead Legion, the skeleton berserker's great sword, glowing with red light, struck the magic bull. Its terrifying attack power made it scream incessantly. It was already in a near-death state after just one encounter. A few more hits, and it would be dead for sure. But just then, a brilliant light erupted from its body. All the surrounding skeleton berserkers were blown away. Even the skeleton archmage's elemental explosion was blocked. At the same time, its aura increased by at least 50%. Its attributes were now incredibly close to a level 60 world-class boss. It even completely healed its previous injuries. But even so, it was still no match for my Undead Legion. Even if it increased by another 100%, it wouldn't make a difference. Soon, under the skeleton's concentrated fire, the Kunlun magic bull lasted less than 10 seconds before being killed. Killing it gave me 5.8 million experience points. And I also obtained 2 platinum-grade pieces of equipment. But no matter how good the gear is, it's useless to me right now. I'll just have to sell them later. At this point, less than a tenth of the hourglass in the sky had run out. Then, the hourglass turned into a stream of light and flew into my body. I knew I had been marked by the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. This also meant I was qualified to enter the next stage of the dungeon. Then, I took a look at my experience bar. I found it had only increased by about 3%. At this rate, I could level up once just by grinding for a day. And there were still 6 days left until the soul melting array was activated. If nothing unexpected happened, I should be able to reach around level 57. Just as I was preparing to leave the dungeon, a small blade of grass suddenly sprouted from the ground next to the boss. The grass was emitting a holy white light. I immediately cast a detection spell on it. It turned out to be called Kunlun Snowgrass. It was a rare reward from the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. For practitioners below level 80, using it can increase their level by 1. I was shocked after seeing its attributes. I never imagined there were herbs in this world that could directly increase your level. But I've never heard of anyone obtaining a reward like Kunlun Snowgrass. And you also need to reach a certain evaluation level to trigger this hidden reward. My heart raced with excitement at the thought. I wonder if I'll get a reward like this the next time I solo it. If I can clear dungeons even faster. Who knows what other hidden rewards I might find. However, I didn't use the Kunlun Snowgrass immediately. Because I know that everything has its pros and cons. This way of leveling up might bring unknown consequences. I plan to go back and ask Antares to ensure there were no side effects before making a decision. Then, I exited the dungeon. However, this was witnessed by the professionals who were already there. Their eyes widened in shock. Holy crap, this is insane. He actually soloed the Kunlun Divine Palace dungeon. And he cleared it in less than half an hour. Even top-tier professionals at level 80 or higher couldn't do that. Yeah, exactly. and it doesn't even look like he came here to clear the dungeon. It's more like he's just here to level up. That's why he reset the dungeon immediately after coming out. Some professional teams felt a sense of despair upon hearing this. But now they realized it was all in vain. Even the strongest professional teams in the world couldn't possibly clear this dungeon within half an hour. Meanwhile, some female professionals were deeply captivated by my achievement. They began waiting at the dungeon entrance for me to come out again. But no one noticed. A pair of cold eyes appearing in the wind and snow. It appeared 1,000 meters high, looking down. Its freezing gaze swept over the crowd through the storm. Finally, its eyes settled on the spot where I had just entered the dungeon. The deity hidden in the Kunlun Mountains had finally made a move against me. But it never expected that it wouldn't be my match. It turns out that just now, I started picking up the pace after my second entry into the dungeon. Not only did I deploy the Undead Legion and the Poison Lich, but I even used Corpse Burst, which I hadn't used in a long time. My EXP began to rise steadily. Even though each run only gives 3% EXP, it's still many times faster than other practitioners. You see, after reaching level 50, others need at least several months, or even half a year, to level up once. But at my current speed, I only need at most 1 day. Soon, I killed the Kunlun magic bull again. But to my disappointment, the Kunlun snow grass didn't appear this time. But then again. So I left the dungeon to prepare for another entry. Suddenly, I sensed someone watching me from behind. But when I looked back, I didn't find anyone suspicious. So I didn't pay it any mind and continued using the cooldown talisman to reset the dungeon. In less than a day, I reached level 54. All my attributes and skills had improved. However, my brow grew increasingly furrowed. That feeling of being watched became stronger and stronger. I could feel it every time I left the dungeon. But I just couldn't figure out where the gaze was coming from. Who exactly is targeting me? Could it be someone from the Demon Worship Society? Or perhaps the dragon race and demons have sneaked in. However, the human race's defense system has become very complete over these years. Demons would have to pay a heavy price to get in. And even if they did, they wouldn't be much stronger. I'm completely confident I can make sure they never return. After some thought, I started grinding the dungeon with everything I've got. However, each run now only grants about 2.5% experience. But I still managed to reach level 55 within a single day. Holy crap, he actually leveled up again. This is just too insane. It takes others at least several months to level up once. It's really frustrating to see someone like him. After reaching level 55, my experience bar went up again. Now, each dungeon run only adds 1.5% experience. Calculating it, I'll need to run it at least 67 more times to level up. I have 77 uses left on my high-grade cooldown talisman. That's just enough to get me to level 56. The number of Lich Generals increased to 35. The total number of skeletons in my Undead Legion reached 36,750. I'm still using the method of equal distribution. That's 12,250 of each of the 3 types of skeletons. Even though the attack power of the skeleton mages and sharpshooters isn't as high as the berserkers, especially while using the strengthening soldier skill, the gap in their explosive power is huge. But I believe that if something exists, there must be a reason. Since this skill exists, it must have its own strengths. It's just that I haven't discovered it yet. Perhaps its true power will reveal itself in the future. With the bonus from its talent, the skeleton berserkers, for basic attributes have already reached 312,000. Just a single attribute is comparable to a Lord-level boss of the same level. Even a world boss is far inferior to the skeleton berserker. I've even fantasized that one day, after I reach the god level, my skeletons might also be able to reach that same level. By then, I could summon a god-level army of millions with just a wave of my hand. Before I knew it, I had used up all the charges of the high-level cooldown talisman. Then, I activated the teleportation stone in my hand to prepare for departure. Suddenly, a light fell into the teleportation channel. The next second, I found myself in a world of wind and snow. I knew this was all the work of that enemy hiding in the shadows. But to my surprise, this place was actually a world made of elements. Clearly, a deity was the one who brought me here. So, I spoke slowly to the empty air. I believed that doing this would definitely put some pressure on the other party. The howling wind and snow stopped instantly. Then, a snowy figure appeared about 100 meters away from me. It radiated the aura of a deity from its entire body. However, her aura was quite unstable. It was clear she had only recently ascended to godhood. Her level should be around level 90. Seeing this, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. But it's best not to pick a fight with her if I can avoid it. So, I asked her why she had brought me into this elemental world. After a moment, her cold voice slowly rang out. You can call me Kunlun Snow God. I sense the divine seed I need within you. As long as you hand it over, I will let you leave. I was slightly stunned by her words. It was true that I carried two divine seeds. One was the divine seed of the Venom God. When Kunlun Snow God said this, I knew that things wouldn't end peacefully today. It's like placing a mythic-grade weapon in front of a god-level powerhouse. So, she naturally wouldn't let this chance slip away. Then, Kunlun Snow God spoke again. I shook my head in disdain. Aren't you afraid that god-level powerhouses from the human race will come to settle the score? As I spoke, my expression suddenly changed. In a single second, the Undead Legion appeared. A massive swarm of skeleton berserkers charged toward the Kunlun Snow God. Meanwhile, the Lich General was buffing the Undead Legion. Snow and ice freeze. With a light shout, dense snowflakes began falling over the Undead Legion. Instantly, the entire Legion was frozen solid. Even the Lich General was no exception. Only I, thanks to my immunity skill, remained unfrozen. The Kunlun Snow God didn't care about that, though. It rushed toward me with a sinister grin. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of me. But I wasn't panicked at all. Instead, a smile played on my lips. Not necessarily. The Kunlun Snow God suddenly felt a chill down its spine. It sensed that something was wrong. A flame lich appeared right beside me. Its flame aura washed over the Undead Legion. The ice and snow melted instantly. I immediately led the Legion in a rapid retreat. Meanwhile, the flame lich lunged at the Kunlun Snow God. Soon, a massive explosion echoed through the heavens and earth. A scorching fireball suddenly appeared behind it. Immediately, the world of wind and snow began to shake violently. Although the flame lich's self-detonation wasn't enough to kill it, it was enough to shatter its elemental world. If this weren't within the borders of Xinxia, I would have used the venom lich to kill it instantly. Before the Kunlun Snow God could recover from the first explosion, I summoned another flame lich. The world of ice and snow cracked and exploded with a roar. A surge of flames erupted. The violent noise instantly alerted the professionals in the Kunlun Mountains. What's happening? Why are there so many skeletons? I know. This is Divine General Lin Moyu's undead army. Just then, my voice echoed across the Kunlun Mountains. Everyone retreat 100 miles. My voice carried supreme authority. As soon as I spoke, the professionals began to flee. Only the professionals from other countries remained standing still. Only the awakeners from other countries stood there, frozen in place. At that moment, the Kunlun Snow God was completely engulfed in flames. It turned into a massive fireball and screamed as it charged toward me. Hearing this, I looked on with disdain. You're not worthy. It's out. It's finally out. And the Kunlun Snow God, revered as a deity, never imagined. At this moment, she didn't just want to steal the two divine seats I possessed. She wanted to kill me to wipe away her humiliation. However, once her elemental world was shattered, I confirmed that I was still near the Kunlun Mountains. I was still hundreds of kilometers away from the urban areas of Xinxia. Because of that, I had no more reservations. The two runes on the back of my hand glowed simultaneously. Two primordial rune skills were suddenly activated. In an instant, my attributes were pushed to the limit. The combat power of my undead army also soared to an unimaginable level. Although this power wasn't very effective against a god, and could barely even distract one. But distraction wasn't what I needed. I just needed the undead army to hold off the Kunlun Snow God for a few seconds. The strongest skeleton berserker charged forward first. But right then, the Kunlun Snow God used a skill to freeze all the skeletons once again. At the same time, it slowly raised a hand. Suddenly, a giant palm made of ice and snow appeared in the air and slammed down toward me. I found myself unable to escape the shroud of ice and snow power. But I didn't panic because of it. Combined with my passive damage transfer, I had enough confidence to take this palm strike. With a loud boom, my entire body fell like a meteor. The professionals in the Kunlun Mountains cried out in shock at the sight. They finally realized who I was fighting. It was actually a deity. A true god. At this moment, everyone was breaking into a cold sweat for me. In its mind, I had already lost all signs of life. After all, I was only a level 56 professional. It would be impossible to survive its heavy blow. But just then, a flash of green light suddenly erupted from where I fell. I was standing unharmed amidst the ruins. A lich, glowing with green light, appeared by my side. The moment the Kunlun Snow God saw the poisonous lich, its expression changed drastically. Without a second thought, it retreated frantically. But then, its body suddenly froze. Its entire body was covered by a layer of bones. The skill, Bone Prison. However, It was enough to let the poisonous lich get close to it. Then, it exploded amidst the screams of the Kunlun snow god. A terrifying poisonous gas suddenly erupted. Its body then began to melt rapidly. Seeing this scene, the professionals were completely stunned. They never imagined that this green poisonous gas could be so powerful that even a god couldn't resist it. They finally understood why I told them to retreat 100 kilometers. Once touched by this poison, they would surely die. The professionals who didn't retreat were now filled with regret. A radius of over 10 kilometers was shrouded in the deadly poison. This entire area had become a death trap. Those foreign professionals who stayed behind were instantly wiped out. But what happened next left everyone even more speechless. I walked slowly through the poisonous gas, completely unharmed. Holy crap. Divine General Lin is just too strong. Even a poison that can instantly kill a god couldn't touch him. Meanwhile, the Kunlun snow god lay on the ground, barely clinging to life. It knew it was finished. It calmed itself down, looked at me, and spoke slowly. Can you tell me the meaning of a 3-star Divine General? Maintaining a distance of nearly 1,000 meters, I replied calmly. The Kunlun snow god froze for a second upon hearing this. Then, it let out a self-deprecating laugh. No wonder you're not afraid of me. It turns out you had already slain 3 god-level beings before this. After its death, another god would be added to my achievements. But as a god, even in death, it must have dignity. As its voice faded, its remaining body suddenly became brilliant. Immediately after, a Kunlun snowgrass appeared above its head. Seeing this, I didn't hesitate and quickly retreated. On my way back, I also summoned the Undead Lich. The next second, the entire Kunlun mountains began to shake. The Kunlun snow god self-destructed. It self-destructed along with its divine seed and divinity. The massive force sent me flying hundreds of kilometers. The Undead Legion was also destroyed in an instant. Fortunately, the Undead Lich's aura spared them from death. And because of that, I survived. It's just a pity that its self-destruction cost me at least 90 billion experience points. And I didn't get any benefits from it either. Even the soldier's badge didn't react at all. From the very beginning, I had guessed how it knew I possessed a divine seat. The problem lies with the Kunlun snowgrass. Originally, if you could solo the Kunlun Divine official dungeon within the allotted time, you could obtain extra special rewards. But since this dungeon was created, no one has ever completed it. Eventually, it successfully mastered the power of wind and snow, and became a water element deity. That's why a phantom of the Kunlun snowgrass appeared when it self-destructed just now. And those newly grown Kunlun snowgrasses are its descendants. So she attacked me while preparing to return, all for the sake of a divine position. She just never expected that I actually had the strength to challenge someone far above my level. Afterward, I crushed the teleportation stone and returned to my small courtyard. At this time, Bai Yuan was the only one in the courtyard. Meanwhile, Meng Anwen has been busy lately setting up the soul melting grand array. It will probably take about another month to complete the setup. I nodded. I had indeed encountered a level 90 god, but I'd already killed it. Hearing this, Bai Yuan was stunned for a moment. He noted that gods are not easy to kill. So, I told him the whole story. When he heard about the Kunlun snow god's self-destruction, even he might have been injured. But I was completely unharmed. He began to wonder if he had underestimated his disciple. Then, I took out the Kunlun snowgrass I had just obtained. After a quick glance, Bai Yuan's face filled with shock. He exclaimed that it was incredible stuff. He asked how I had obtained it. I told him it was an extra reward from soloing the Kunlun Divine Palace. Hearing my answer, Bai Yuan seemed to realize something profound. He knew my combat power was almost monstrous, and that I could completely crush dungeons of the same level, especially after my level increased. Even the hardest dungeons feel like a game to me. It's no surprise at all that I can get extra rewards. But he didn't know if this Kunlun snowgrass had any specific side effects. So he told me to consult Meng Anwen before making a decision. Then he took me to Fortress 4 of the Primordial Battlefield. In 3 days, a competition will be held here. The winner can obtain half a talent divine stone. But I have no interest in this competition at all. However, Bai Yuan told me that a grand matchmaking event would also be held here. Various families and factions had already arrived 10 days ago. Fortress 4 is now a gathering place for beautiful women. Don't just keep thinking about old man Ning's granddaughter, kid. Why not pick more? Although the Empire practices monogamy, divine generals and god-level experts have special privileges. It's no problem to marry a few more. Just then, a charming voice sounded from behind me. I've finally found you, my darling. Bai Yuan panicked immediately upon hearing this voice. Master has to leave for something first. See you in 3 days. After leaving those words, he vanished on the spot. Then I saw a woman in a light yellow dress flying over. She looked to be in her early 30s, with extremely beautiful features and an extraordinary aura. After seeing Bai Yuan flee in panic, she let out a sharp cry. Her entire body turned into a beam of light and shot into the sky. Clearly, this woman was also a god-level powerhouse. And she wasn't much weaker than Bai Yuan. It looked like she was Bai Yuan's fanatic admirer. No wonder Bai Yuan ran so fast. Here it comes, here it comes. The decennial Divine Stone Dungeon trial is finally about to begin. I have become a guest on the same level as god-level powerhouses. It turns out that just a moment ago, watching Bai Yuan run away made me feel amused. The fearless god Bai actually fears women. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar voice rang out behind me. Lin, you dummy. I looked towards the sound and saw Xia Shui, the former class beauty. She walked over quickly and asked if I was here to participate in the dungeon trial. I shook my head. Then I told her that I was only here as a guest to watch the competition. Hearing this, Xia Shui finally breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness a freak like you isn't here to participate in the trial. Otherwise, how would we class users have any chance? Just then, a large group of people approached. Strangely, this group of class users was entirely female. The leader was none other than Jialan Yeyu. Upon seeing me, she suddenly cried out in surprise. You're actually alive. Right then, a figure rushed toward me, bringing a scent of perfume. Before anyone could react, she threw herself into my arms. I'm so glad you're alive, Mu Xianxian said through her tears falling incessantly. Watching this, Xia Shui immediately became curious. She had seen Ningyi before, so she wondered who this beautiful woman was. Mu Xianxian was so excited to see me that she momentarily forgot where we were. Ever since Antares teleported us to the lower dimension last time, I had used a spatial teleportation stone to send her back to the human world. After all, the monsters in the lower dimension back then were far beyond her capabilities. Even a common mob could have killed her instantly. Even I couldn't guarantee I'd make it back alive. Now that she saw me return safe and sound, she finally couldn't hold back her emotions and burst into tears. I gently patted her shoulder to comfort her. Of course I won't die. But if you keep hugging me like this, I'm really going to be strangled to death. Hearing this, Mu Xianxian let out a startled cry and pulled back. She realized her behavior had been a bit over the top, and her face instantly turned bright red. Just then, a white light descended from the sky. Lin Moyu. Long time no see. Mo Yun was descending slowly from the sky, riding a Holy Spirit unicorn. Xia Shui couldn't help but gasp in surprise. Good grief, here comes another one. She couldn't help but admire my personal charm. To think I have so many female friends at once. And every single one of them is a top-tier beauty. Mo Yun is here to participate in this dungeon trial just like them. There are still a few hours left before the Divine Stone dungeon opens. A large number of professionals have been arriving from all over the country. It still offers a 30% chance to awaken a talent. For most people, this is already a massive opportunity. Even the number of people in the spectator stands is growing. Only the guest area remains relatively empty. However, to be invited by the military as a guest, both status and strength are essential. As a star-proclaiming divine general, I naturally have guest status. The people in the regular spectator stands began to gasp in surprise. How dare an ordinary professional trespass there? He must not want to live anymore. Exactly. Who knows which family this rule-breaking kid came from? However, only Mu Xianxian and a few others knew that given my status, I had likely already been invited as a guest by the military. Just then, a squad of soldiers rushed over to block my path. Stop! The guest area ahead is off limits. Seeing this, everyone showed expressions of anticipation. Something good is about to happen. However, once I placed the 3-star Divine General badge on my shoulder, several soldiers immediately saluted me. Everyone was stunned by the sight. Holy crap, did I hear that right? I ignored the commotion around me, because right here, I saw the person I wanted to see most. Ningyi was looking at me with a mischievous look on her face. I walked up to her and pulled her into my arms. Beside us, Ning Tairan was fuming with rage, but he didn't dare say a word. Otherwise, Ningyi would definitely turn on her. He wasn't afraid of anything, except for his precious granddaughter. Just then, a sharp cry rang out from the sky. A massive golden unicorn appeared in the air. A powerful aura swept out from its body, and someone was standing on its back. The newcomer was humanity's #1 summoner, Mo Shanghai. As a level 95 summoner, he descended slowly into the VIP area, bringing Mo Yun with her. Many professionals were mesmerized when they saw Mo Yun. Anyone who could marry her would be blessed for 10 lifetimes. Then, Mo Xinghai greeted Ning Tairan. Long time no see, old man Ning. You old geezer actually managed to stay alive. Hearing this, Mo Xinghai laughed loudly. How could he possibly die before him? The two of them were old friends. They joked around very casually. Suddenly, the world lit up brightly. A massive golden long sword appeared in the sky. Golden sword chi swept across the surroundings. The sound of slicing echoed continuously through the air. The newcomer was none other than Feng Chang'an from the Feng family. He, like Mo Xinghai, is a level 95 mid-tier god-level powerhouse. But he is hailed by the world as the #1 offensive fighter. Because the specialty of this class is focused on attack. Many practitioners highly admire this class. They hope that one day they too can become god-level powerhouses with extremely strong attack capabilities. Perhaps 1 or 2 people among those present could reach this stage. But most people will still end up becoming ordinary. No matter how much of a genius they once were, or how much high expectations their families and relatives placed on them. In the end, how far they can go remains an unknown. Just then, 2 streaks of light flashed across the sky again. I looked up and couldn't help but smile. It was my master, Bai Yuan, returning. And by his side was that woman in yellow from earlier. Clearly, he had been brought back forcibly. At this moment, the woman looked at me and spoke. You are a Yuan's disciple, Xiao Yu, right? My mind raced, and I quickly bowed. This disciple greets master's wife. Hearing this, Bai Yuan's eyebrows twitched. But he didn't object. Good, good, good. So just take this as a meeting gift. Saying this, she stuffed an item into my hand. Then, Bai Yuan told me who she was. Her name is Zhu Qinglu. She's a level 94 god-level healer. I was secretly surprised to hear that. Their status is incredibly high. It looks like I've gained another solid backer. Suddenly, the phantom image of Xinxia Tower appeared in the sky. Meng Anwen is here. Right after, a large group of people ascended into the air. Every single one of them was a beautiful woman. Bai Yuan gave me a mischievous look. See, these are old Meng's lovers. I just laughed at that. Bai Yuan's mouth twitched. You greedy brat. I ignored him. Instead, I took out the gift Zhu Qinglu gave me to inspect it. It turned out to be a god-level healing talisman. This is a fantastic item. Even if you lost an arm or a leg, having this is like having several extra lives. So, I gave it to Ning Yi, who was standing beside me. This talisman isn't particularly useful for me. If I ever ran into a situation where I needed to use it, this talisman won't even save me. On the contrary, it could save Ning Yi's life. The collision is here. I'm finally having an epic showdown with the military's 4 god-level experts. But Yi Hao, the leader of the 4 great divine generals, never expected that he'd be forced to back down in public by a level 50-something professional. It all started just a moment ago. Right then, Mo Yun pulled Ning Yi to the side and whispered, "We can't hold him back anymore." I understand. From now on, I'll level up on my own. Even if it's a bit slower and more exhausting. At least I won't be a burden to him. She knew the gap between our levels was widening, and she knew my leveling speed would only get faster. Mo Yun gently patted her shoulder to comfort her. His path is different from ours. The enemies he faces are getting stronger and stronger. If he can't raise his level quickly, he might encounter enemies he can't defeat in the future. Ning Yi clenched her small fists. A determination to become stronger rose in her heart. His aura instantly overwhelmed everyone present. The god-level experts were all shocked by his presence. Bai Yuan said with a look of envy, "I can't believe this guy became a high god level before us. Looks like I can't slack off either. I need to catch up to him as soon as possible." Just then, the time for the Divine Stone dungeon to open finally arrived. A god-level expert from the military flew out of the fortress. He immediately activated a scroll. A second later, a dungeon vortex slowly appeared. As he spoke, various formations lit up across the field. Then, hundreds of projections appeared in the air. These projections allowed everyone to see everything happening inside the dungeon. This dungeon trial wasn't just about getting the final reward. It was also an opportunity to show the world what we're capable of. The content and difficulty of the challenges inside would change based on the entrance class and level. To me, this dungeon felt like a test. The better the score, the better the reward. Although the best reward was said to be half a talent divine stone, I felt it was far more than that. Perhaps no one had ever actually achieved a perfect score. So, I asked Bai Yuan what the highest score in this dungeon was. He told me the historical high score was 95. But as long as you could score 90 or above, you'd get half a divine stone. Suddenly, Bai Yuan seemed to realize something. Meng Anwen and I have had our doubts too. So, it's impossible to prove. Suddenly, his eyes gleamed as if he'd thought of something. Why don't you give it a try? With your strength, you should be able to break the historical record. Hearing this, I nodded. But we must let other practitioners try first. However, while we were talking, four powerful auras suddenly swept out from Fortress 4. Immediately after, four god-level experts led by Yi Hao appeared before everyone. Seeing the newcomers, Bai Yuan's expression turned sour. Why are these annoying guys here? And it said that Yi Hao has been living in seclusion in Fortress 9, intending to take control of the demon extermination tower. Could he have actually succeeded? But Imo Xinghe, standing beside him, shook his head. No. Otherwise, with his personality, he would have been showing it off long ago. You know this yourself. How fiercely and Shen fought these guys for the Xinxia Tower back then. Seeing Bai Yuan's reaction, I knew they weren't on friendly terms. Meng Anwen, standing nearby, introduced them to me. The leader, Yi Hao, is a level 95 divine mage. His seniority is one generation higher than him and old Bai. 92 level divine warrior Wei Song. They might even pick a fight one of these days. Hearing this, I silently kept those four in my mind. They might become my enemies one day. At this time, Yi Hao and his group also landed in the guest area. Yi Hao's sharp gaze swept over the crowd. Finally, it landed on me. So this is Divine General Lin. The younger generation is truly formidable. Then, his gaze shifted to Ning Yi and the other two. These three young ladies must be the granddaughters of the Divine Generals. Hearing this, Ning Tyrant said coldly. That's right. May I ask what guidance Senior Yi has to offer? Yi Hao said with a smile. I have a great-grandson. He is quite handsome. And he possesses extraordinary talent. He would be a perfect match for your granddaughter. How about we play matchmaker? But I interrupted him before he could finish. May I ask where Senior Ye's great-grandson is? Could you have him come over? Yi Hao turned his head and looked at me with great interest. Could it be that Divine General Lin is also interested in meeting my great-grandson? However, my eyes held a hint of killing intent. Upon these words, the guest area instantly fell into silence. Countless eyes focused on me. They all knew about the situation between me and Ning Tyrant's granddaughter. By saying this, Yi Hao was undoubtedly refusing to give me any face. It was also a slap in the face to Meng Anwen and Bai Yuan. But my words just now were undoubtedly the most powerful counterattack. Ning Tyrant was very satisfied with my performance. Even he wouldn't dare say such things in front of so many people. But for the sake of his granddaughter, I dared to openly make an enemy of Yi Hao and the others. At this moment, Yi Hao narrowed his eyes and stared intently at me. Divine General Lin. What do you mean by that? I smiled. I'll put it another way. I'm saying, have your great-grandson step forward, and I'll send him to the afterlife right here and now. Upon hearing this, Yi Hao's expression instantly became incredibly ugly. Then, a terrifying aura erupted from his body as he said coldly, Divine General Lin. You're being very dangerous. The three people behind him, including Wang Lin, were also staring at me with ill intent. But I wasn't afraid in the slightest. Not to mention I had the factions of Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen behind me. Even on my own, I wouldn't necessarily lose. As long as I paid a small price, they wouldn't gain a thing. So I ignored him. Teacher, please help me find out who his great-grandson is. Meng Anwen immediately understood. Leave this to me. Hearing this, Yi Hao's expression changed instantly. He didn't expect me to actually be serious. After all, in his eyes, no matter how strong I am, I'm nothing more than a junior. But my current performance has made things tricky for him. Right now, he feels like he's caught between a rock and a hard place. His great-grandson is indeed a genius. But compared to me, he's still far behind. A flash of killing intent crossed his mind, and I keenly sensed it. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. There are far too many people who want me dead. Even the Demon Emperor and the Dragon Emperor want to kill me. They're nowhere near enough to take me down. The atmosphere became incredibly heavy in an instant. Yi Hao knew he had touched my nerve. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to say such things in front of so many people. After a moment of thought, Yi Hao forced a smile. I was just joking just now. I hope God General Lin won't take it personally. Since the Divine Stone dungeon has already opened, let's all just enjoy the performance of these young talents. But I just stared at him without saying a word. It wasn't until Meng Anwen stepped in that this farce finally ended. Of course, I knew I couldn't actually fight Yi Hao. If a real conflict broke out between the two sides, it wouldn't be good for the Xinxiao Empire. Then, the god-level powerhouse who summoned the dungeon began explaining the rules. The number of people entering the dungeon each time is 100. You get 10 points for every level cleared in the dungeon. Professionals who clear the 9th level can obtain half a talent divine stone. I hope someone capable can clear the 10th level this year. Soon, the first batch of professionals was teleported into the dungeon one after another. It's starting. However, just when everyone thought it was impossible for anyone to get a perfect score, right after Yihao was intimidated by my aura and surrendered in public. Through the projection, I could also see the assessment scenes inside the dungeon. The first level of the dungeon tests a professional's reaction speed. These two levels are both basic assessments. Very few professionals are eliminated in these two levels. But starting from the third level, the difficulty of the combat assessment begins to rise. Every professional will face a giant white tiger. The tiger's level is the same as the level of each professional. Its combat power is only at the level of an ordinary elite monster. Yet, quite a few professionals are still eliminated at this stage. I was quite surprised by this. I didn't understand how so many people couldn't defeat such a weak monster. Bai Yuan's voice rang out from the side. That's normal. Not every professional can possess combat power like yours. Most professionals' combat power isn't even as high as those small monsters in hell difficulty dungeons. Our human race isn't a powerful one. But this Divine Stone dungeon specifically aims to select powerful individuals from among us. Its existence seemed to perfectly align with Antares' theory. It's better to have one super god-level powerhouse than a whole bunch of god-level ones. However, from start to finish, no one has ever passed this dungeon with a perfect score. At this moment, Meng Anwen spoke up. Those who score above 90 prove they have the potential to become god-level. But it doesn't guarantee they will actually reach that level. And those who don't even reach 90 basically have no hope of becoming a god. Since the Divine Stone dungeon was discovered 480 years ago, over 11 million people have entered it. Fewer than 500 people scored above 90. But only about 50 people actually reached the god level. By now, 90% of the professionals had successfully killed the white tiger and passed the third stage. Right after, streaks of green light fell upon everyone. All those who passed were instantly fully restored. Meanwhile, the faces of the eliminated professionals were incredibly grim. They never expected to be knocked out in the third stage. It was an absolute embarrassment. Not only did they feel ashamed, but even their own kin felt the shame. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't have been beaten so badly. At this point, the Divine Stone dungeon had reached the fourth stage. The guardian of this stage was still that same white tiger. Only this time, its level was 3 levels higher than the professionals. More people were eliminated in this round. Just then, someone nearby explained that this is the nature of the Godstone dungeon. With every level, the difficulty for the practitioners increases. Aside from the first 2 levels being basic tests, the guardians of the next 5 are all elemental white tigers. The longer an awaken lasts, the more points they earn. Back then, Meng Anwen held out for 14 minutes, ending up with a score of 94. Now, out of the 100 people who entered, only 5 are still left in the 7th level. At this moment, only 5 out of the 100 people who entered remain in the 7th stage dungeon. But even these 5 are in a precarious position. Under the onslaught of the elemental tigers, they only have enough strength left to defend themselves. In the following batches, only a few managed to reach the 9th stage. However, they were eliminated after lasting less than 5 minutes. The highest score was only 85. But in the next batch of challengers, one person caught the attention of Bai Shun and the others. That was Feng Xian, a direct descendant of Feng Chang'an. He is also the most outstanding disciple of the Feng family in this generation. Carrying a sharp sword, he exuded an incredibly sharp and fierce aura. His strength was just as immense as his presence. In the first 7 stages, he killed the guardians with a single sword strike. It wasn't until he reached the 8th stage boss that he erupted with an even more powerful aura. The moment he drew his sword, countless violent bursts of sword chi shot forth. This boss, which had stumped so many others, was instantly slain. Seeing this, Meng Anwen nodded slightly, reaching the peak of sword skills at only level 62. Very impressive. He intentionally spoke loudly so Feng Chang'an could hear him. He was extremely satisfied with Feng Xian's performance. But even in his joy, he couldn't help but glance at me. His heart was suddenly filled with complex emotions. What a pity. If it weren't for me, Feng Xian might have been able to dominate an entire era. He knows exactly how strong I am. And he even knows more than anyone else. He even went out of his way to look into my performance in the Xinxia ancient city. By comparison, Feng Xian is still quite a bit behind me. At this point, Feng Xian had entered the 9th level. For level 62, tigers surrounded him. His long sword flashed with a sharp light. And in the next second, one of the tigers collapsed instantly. His final score still ended up at 90 points. This is because the number and level of tigers in the 9th level increase over time. No matter how strong he is, he can't possibly face hundreds of elemental tigers at once. Upon leaving the dungeon, Feng Xian found a stone in his mental world, which was actually half of a talent divine stone. Next, it was Ning Yi, Mu Qianqian, and the others' turn. Mu Qianqian even waved at me before entering the dungeon. Meng Anwen couldn't help but smile when he saw Mu Qianqian's profession. Xiaoyu. This young lady's profession is quite rare, you know. You should really cherish it. Hearing that, I felt incredibly flustered. Did he mean he wanted me to take Mu Qianqian as well? So, I just looked toward the dungeon as if nothing had happened. By now, several of them had reached the 9th level. But Mu Qianqian was the first one to be eliminated. Her score was 90, just like Feng Xian's. After all, her class is more of a support type. So achieving this result was already quite a feat. The second person to be eliminated was Ning Yi. She lasted 1 minute longer than Mu Qianqian, reaching a score of 91 points. Even Mo Yun, whom I consider the strongest, only managed to get 93 points. Keep in mind, she even obtained a primordial rune in the Eternal Battlefield. It just shows how difficult it is to get a perfect score in the Divine Stone dungeon. But what surprised everyone was, the person who seemed to have the least combat capability actually managed to last until the very end, all the way until the 95-minute mark. Suddenly, a beast's roar erupted from the dungeon. A 100-meter-tall, multicolored tiger appeared in the sky. Its massive claws slammed down, and Shu Han was knocked out of the dungeon without any chance to resist. In the end, she achieved a score of 95, tying the record for the Divine Stone dungeon. Even Meng Anwen only managed 94 points in the past. Shu Han's achievement brought immense glory to the Shu family. Everyone present had completed the assessment. Only 9 people in total managed to score 90 points. But Shu Han still held the highest score of them all. Seeing that no one was going to break the historical record this time, Bai Yuan suggested that I go and take on the challenge. I nodded, then stood up and walked toward the entrance of the Divine Stone dungeon. My actions immediately caught everyone's attention. Suddenly, everyone began to discuss it. With his strength, he could definitely break the record. I just don't know if he can get a perfect score of 100. After all, the difficulty will only get higher later on. Amidst the chatter, I had already entered the Divine Stone dungeon. Just then, Yi Hao's voice rang out coldly. Enlarge the footage of Lin Moyu's challenge. Let everyone witness his performance. The god-level expert in charge of this dungeon competition didn't move. Instead, he looked towards Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen in the guest area. He naturally wouldn't follow Yi Hao's orders. But at this moment, Meng Anwen gave Yi Hao a calm glance. Since Senior Yi wants to see it, then I will fulfill your wish. With that, he tapped his finger, releasing several rune seals. The formation in the arena shifted and turned. The screen showing me was suddenly enlarged. This is shocking, truly shocking. I didn't expect to break the historical record on my very first dungeon run, and successfully enter a hidden level that no one has ever reached before. It turns out that after the Divine Stone dungeon of this session was declared over, as for the 3rd level, the fierce tiger hadn't even had time to let out a roar, when it was instantly killed by my skill, Bon Fong. Although this skill is a bit inferior to my other skills, but it's more than enough to one-shot monsters of the same level. And I've always believed that this skill will eventually evolve. I cleared levels 5, 6, and 7 using only this single move. In fact, I haven't even moved a single step since entering the dungeon. This scene stunned everyone. The Divine General Lin is actually this strong. But why haven't we seen him summon his Undead Legion? He doesn't need to use his skeleton army at all. The spectator stands were in an uproar at this moment. Everyone was watching my every move. Even the elders from various families were keeping a close eye on me. Soon, I reached the 8th level. The boss of this level was a fusion of 4 different elements. While everyone expected me to summon an Undead Legion, I instead pulled a long sword out of my storage space. The audience erupted in an uproar. They didn't understand why I was using a weapon that didn't belong to my class. I rushed toward the boss like a swordsman, relying on my own powerful attributes. Even without using any skills, my attack power was quite impressive. The long sword in my hand unleashed terrifying waves of sword chi. The next second, the boss's massive body crashed to the ground. Even Feng Chang'an was shocked by this sight. To think the Divine General Lin's mastery of swordsmanship had reached such a level. Meng Anwen, standing nearby, said with a smile, Xiaoyu wants to tell the world that he doesn't rely on skills and can still exert powerful combat strength through attributes and technique alone. This is also a necessary foundation for becoming a god-level powerhouse. At this moment, I have reached the 9th level. For white tigers appeared simultaneously and surrounded me, and one more would appear every 5 seconds. If I didn't kill them fast enough, their numbers would keep increasing. I finally deployed my Undead Legion, before the strongest skeleton berserker could even strike. After a series of dazzling elemental explosions, the skeleton mages instantly killed the 4 powerful tigers. And after that, every tiger that appeared was instantly killed by them. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Only then did they realize my strength was already on a completely different level from theirs. The 9th level's trial was practically useless before me. I stood still, letting my Undead Legion act freely. 10 minutes later, a massive, multicolored tiger appeared in the sky. Since the Godstone dungeon was created, many people have reached this point. However, they all lost to the boss before them. This shows just how strong this boss is. At this moment, everyone watching held their breath. Everyone was looking forward to my performance. I think Lin Moyu won't be able to beat this boss. After all, no one in history has ever done it. But some people are very confident in me. Just because others can't do it doesn't mean Lin Moyu can't. Has Lin Moyu not created enough miracles already? At this moment, Feng Chang'an said jokingly, "Old Feng, old Ming. When you guys challenged the Divine Stone dungeon before, it seems you never made it this far, right? It looks like your disciples are even more outstanding than you are. And in my opinion, Lin Moyu's limits go far beyond this." Hearing this, Bai Yuan said proudly, "Of course. Just look at who took him as a disciple. Although our era has passed, his era has only just begun." Meanwhile, Yi Hao's face showed a complex expression. In his eyes, there was killing intent, but also a hint of admiration. Even though he holds a grudge against me, at the end of the day, we are both members of the human race. So, he had no choice but to set aside his prejudices. At this moment, the boss was emitting a terrifying aura from its entire body. A layer of 5-colored light formed a defensive shield around it. Furthermore, these lights were cutting through the surrounding air like sharp swords. It was clearly powerful enough to rival a world-class boss. Most importantly, its level was several stages higher than the challengers. For other practitioners. But for someone like me, who is used to hunting monsters above my level, it's nothing. Just then, the 5-colored tiger finally moved. It raised its massive paw and slammed it down toward me. Although I could easily dodge this strike, I stood there motionless, letting the attack hit me. With a loud boom, the terrifying force caused the entire dungeon to shake violently. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. My skeletal armor was shining brightly, but I didn't suffer a single scratch. My gaze held a hint of disdain. It's really weak. The 5-colored tiger was also very surprised. While it was pondering, the skeleton berserker had already appeared before it. The great blade, glowing with red light, struck its body. In just one exchange, it was heavily wounded. I thought it was already over. But suddenly, a mysterious power surged from the dungeon and entered the 5-colored tiger's body. Its level began to rise rapidly. It finally stopped at level 69. Its strength was now much greater than before. It even surpassed the ancient Luan bird of the eternal battlefield. But even so, it was still no match for me. I raised my hand and summoned an Undead Legion once again. At the same time, the aging curse suddenly descended. Although the 5-colored tiger possessed some traits of a world boss, it had no ability to resist the curse. From that moment on, the damage it received increased nearly tenfold. Under the siege of the Undead Legion, it lasted less than a minute before it collapsed. Before it died, it suddenly burst into a brilliant light that illuminated the entire dungeon. Under the shroud of light, the projections within the dungeon also vanished instantly. What's going on? Why did the dungeon images disappear? Could it be that Lin Moyu has already killed the boss? Meng Anwen immediately began casting one-hand seal rune after another. Seeing this, Bai Yuan said calmly, "It should be that Lin Moyu killed the 5-colored fierce tiger, and then triggered some kind of mechanism in the Divine Stone dungeon. No one knows what will happen in the dungeon next. We have no choice but to wait. After all, Xiaoyu has achieved something no one has ever done before." At this moment, the light within the dungeon gradually faded. A small path appeared before my eyes. At the end of the path, a pavilion could be seen. On both sides of the path stood several statues. Every statue was lifelike. They were holding weapons. And they even emitted a heavy killing intent. It looks like this is the hidden stage of the Divine Stone dungeon. It's just that no one has ever entered it before. Then, I led my Undead Legion to move forward. But just as I took a single step, the nearest statue instantly came to life. They instantly transformed into human forms and swung a sword at me. A sword chi dozens of meters long tore through space and struck me. The bone armor on my body was instantly shattered. The massive force sent me flying. Based on the power of just this single strike, I judged that the opponent's combat power should be at least level 75, because level 75 is the beginning of a professional's sublimation. Not only do a professional's attributes begin to skyrocket, but highly perceptive professionals can also grasp the true essence of skills at this stage. The skill's power will be significantly increased. At that moment, the undead army began to counterattack the statues. The first statue was instantly shredded to pieces by the undead army. And as the statue fell, a golden number suddenly appeared on the projection screen outside. In an instant, the crowd erupted in commotion. Lin Mayu actually scored 100 points. Everyone had looks of disbelief on their faces. Even the god-level experts present couldn't believe their eyes. Meanwhile, Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen wore smiles on their faces. It seems Xiao Yu has created another miracle. However, just when everyone thought the dungeon had ended, the score on the projection screen changed to 101. Everyone was shocked to see this. What's going on? Could it be that the maximum score for the Godstone dungeon isn't 100? They were in utter despair. I just casually cleared a dungeon record, and it left the genius practitioners of the Xinxia Empire feeling hopeless. The strength I displayed even shocked the ancestors of the great families. Because since ancient times, no one had ever scored over 95 in the Divine Stone dungeon. Moreover, the score continued to rise by 1 point every 3 seconds. Even Bai Yuan and Meng Anwen were stunned by this. Meanwhile, I was leading the undead army, slaughtering everything in the dungeon. Ever since I started heading toward the central pavilion along the small path, the statues on both sides also began to awaken. Moreover, each statue had the strength of a level 75 top-tier professional. But they were still no match for my Undead Legion. I could even plow through them without needing any special techniques. And for every statue I destroyed, my score would increase by 1 point. However, I wasn't aware of this. I only knew that the trial was still continuing. After I had destroyed hundreds of statues, I had reached the pavilion at the end of the path. I saw an ancient-looking box sitting on the stone table in the center of the pavilion. Inside the box lay a complete talent divine stone. Clearly, it was the reward for this stage. This extra one was completely useless to me. Just then, the rubble beneath my feet suddenly vanished. The previously shattered statues had actually all returned to their original state. At the same time, a new path appeared behind the pavilion. I couldn't help but be startled by this sight. Could it be that this Divine Stone dungeon has more than just 10 stages? So, driven by curiosity, I continued along this path. Passing through the pavilion, I saw statues once again. However, there were only 12 statues before me. Although there were fewer statues, I didn't dare to let my guard down, because these statues were bound to be much stronger than the previous ones. So, I summoned 2 more undead legions and walked forward. Suddenly, one of the statues transformed into a human form and fired an arrow of light. Immediately after, the arrow exploded in midair. The resulting shockwave instantly sent me and my undead legion flying. The power of this strike had already reached the pseudo-god level. I was sent flying for hundreds of meters before I could finally stabilize myself. Next, I cast a detection spell on it. But the information I received shocked me. The info indicated that this statue was only level 80. Suddenly, I thought of the ancient Xinxia city in the eternal battlefield. If Xinxia city was also a product of the previous era. While I was lost in thought, an arrow exploded in midair again. This time, not only was its power immense, but the explosion radius was also much larger. All the skeletons within the blast radius were sent flying. That puppet archer turned into a sharp arrow, shooting straight towards me. Its speed far exceeded my lightning undead wings. I was instantly startled, because transforming into an arrow is a special skill for archers. It cannot be obtained through learning, but can only be mastered through enlightenment. Most archers are unable to reach this level, yet the puppet before me actually did it. This shows just how terrifying the strength of these puppets really is. It looks like I'll have to get serious. So, I summoned my entire undead legion. At the same time, an aging curse suddenly descended. Under the effect of the curse, the puppet archer's speed slowed down significantly. Its charge was instantly interrupted. And what awaited it next was an endless army of the undead. Surrounded by the undead legion, it quickly fell into a disadvantage. Skeleton berserkers unleashed their skills, hacking away at it. It looked as if it was about to fall. But just then, another statue woke up. This time, it was a swordsman puppet, with a light swing of its sharp sword. This strike sent all the skeleton berserkers surrounding the archer puppet flying. It was yet another puppet with pseudo-god level power. Moreover, it possessed combat capabilities that only god level experts could have. It was just slightly lacking in attack power. If the people outside knew I was facing opponents like this, I wonder what they would think. And there are 10 more such puppets waiting to wake up behind it. But I didn't care at all. I raised my hand and released all my elemental liches. Suddenly, several halos appeared on the skeletons, followed by a burst of green light exploding in the air. With a combination of poisonous starburst and poisonous halo, they could deal significant damage to 2 puppets every single second. Meanwhile, the ice lich's halo combined with the aging curse could apply a double slow effect to them. Soon, the 2 puppets were once again surrounded by the Undead Legion. And just at that moment, a third statue also woke up. This puppet was just like the swordsman puppet. It only woke up after sensing the danger to the previous one. It began chanting a string of incantations. In the next second, a massive fireball over 100 meters wide appeared in the sky. Its intention was clear. It wanted to disperse the Undead Legion and rescue the 2 puppets from the encirclement. But there's no way I'd let that happen again. The skeleton mage's elemental explosions began to bombard it relentlessly. In the blink of an eye, its skill was interrupted, along with the sound of puppets shattering. The puppet swordsman and archer had already been taken out by the skeleton berserkers. But at the very moment they died, the remaining 9 statues woke up simultaneously. 2 of them, dressed like healers, raised their staves and began chanting. Suddenly, 2 beams of holy light descended from the sky, landing right on the dead puppets. In the next second, their shattered bodies began to rapidly reassemble. Before long, the 2 puppets were fully resurrected. I was completely shocked by this sight. Now, the 12 puppets had formed a complete team. The support puppets immediately applied buffs to the squad. The combat power of all the puppets surged instantly. At this point, even if a true god-level powerhouse showed up, they might not even be able to defeat these 12 puppets. No wonder no one has managed to reach this place for hundreds of years. Although the Undead Legion has them surrounded, their attacks can't break through the puppets' defenses at all. To break this deadlock, I'd have to use primordial runes or have the elemental liches self-destruct. So, without a moment's hesitation, I activated my strengthening soldier's skill. In an instant, the combat power of my Undead Legion increased more than tenfold. Immediately after, the skeleton berserkers unleashed their skills. Their great swords, glowing with red light, struck the puppets continuously. Every single blow dealt massive damage to the puppets. Seeing this, the 2 knight puppets immediately used their ultimate defense skills. The next second, a defensive shield appeared on all the puppets. Seeing this, I was shocked once again. This skill was clearly meant to only affect the caster. What surprised me even more was that the mage's signature shield could also be applied to others. Clearly, these were skills lost from the previous era, only to be lost later on. By having the puppet knight and the mage coordinate their defensive skills, they actually managed to block the Undead Legion in its strengthened state. I never expected that the usually unstoppable strengthening skill would have no effect whatsoever on these puppets. Now, there was only one way. So, I used the essence blood of the venom god to summon a venom lich. I couldn't care less that I was in a dungeon anymore. As soon as the venom lich appeared, it dove straight into the crowd of puppets. Immediately after, a burst of green light exploded among them. 2 seconds later, all the puppets shattered into pieces and fell to the ground. I clapped my hands and continued along the path until I reached the pavilion. I saw a box sitting on the stone table inside the pavilion. The moment I opened the box, thousands of points of starlight soared into the sky. Seeing this, I was overjoyed, because this was the light that only appeared when I was awakening a skill. At that moment, I remembered a legend from the Royal Ancient Books. It said that in ancient times, there were skilled divine stones, which possessed the power to seize the very essence of heaven and earth. Could the thing inside the box be? With this suspicion, I immediately cast a detection spell. The next second, I was trembling with excitement. I didn't expect that just by absorbing the Mylan fire, which strikes fear into all gods, it would significantly boost my strength. The domain divine stone within my body even broke through to its limit. The item inside was actually the legendary skill divine stone. It can strengthen 1 or more skills, allowing them to break through their limits. So I chose to wait for the right moment to use it. At this time, no new path appeared behind the pavilion. The trial seemed to have ended here. But the moment I put the skill divine stone away, the entire dungeon began to tremble as if some restriction had been lifted. Then, a space-time tunnel slowly appeared before me. I immediately thought this might be the entrance to the next stage. So, without hesitation, I walked in. But the sight that met my eyes left me utterly shocked. The talent divine stones that others would fight tooth and nail to obtain were being tossed around on the ground here like trash. and every single one was a complete talent divine stone. But when I tried to reach out and take one, I found an invisible force blocking me. After a few attempts, I had no choice but to give up. After passing through the mountain peak, I saw a magical flower. It was completely covered in blue flames. Its 6 sapphire-like petals were as clear as glass. Just by looking at it, I could feel the immense power it held. Without realizing it, my right hand was reaching toward that flower. Just as my fingertips were about to touch it, my heart skipped a beat. I jerked my hand back instantly. A fine layer of cold sweat broke out all over my body. I felt like I had just returned from the brink of death. Not bad, kid. To think you could wake up at the very last moment. A voice came from behind me. I looked up and saw a young man on the mountain peak. To my surprise, he was in a soul state. I cautiously asked who he was and why he was here. Hearing my question, the young man appeared in front of me as if he had teleported. You can call me Su Sheng. I am also the manager of this dungeon. I was planning to come out just now, but you haven't fully passed the trial yet. Otherwise, even if you are immune to fire elements, your soul would still have been burned to ashes by the Mylan fire. But even then, I wouldn't have been able to resist stepping in to save you. After all, you're the first person to make it this far. You're much stronger than those useless people outside. Su Sheng had been talking for quite some time. From him, I learned that he came from the previous era. Except that his era had already been destroyed. It was because of a great catastrophe. Su Sheng had been talking for quite some time. Besides that, I also learned about the origin of this dungeon. It turns out this dungeon was a product of the previous era. Its purpose was to select qualified people and give them rewards. Those who reached the 9th level were only barely qualified. Even in their era, they would be considered geniuses. At this moment, the stone spirit said in a low voice, "The people of your era are simply too weak. I really wonder how miserable your era will be when the disaster strikes." I was very surprised to hear this. After all, our human race has experts at the half-step super god level protecting us. Yet in his eyes, we were so fragile. So I asked him what level the professionals of his era had reached. Hearing my words, the stone spirit said proudly, "In our era, super gods were the commanders, and high-level gods were the soldiers." I was instantly shocked. I didn't expect the professionals of the previous era to be so strong. Keep in mind that in the present day, they would be top-tier combat power. You can imagine just how huge the gap between the two eras is. But then, the stone spirit spoke in a slightly comforting tone. "To think you could actually pass this final test. To think you could actually pass this final test. As a reward, I won't just give you another skill divine stone, but I'll also grant you a massive opportunity." As he spoke, he plucked a petal from the charmed blue flower and tossed it onto me. "It can raise the upper limit of your soul strength, which will be of great benefit to your future as a super god. However, you must first endure the tempering of the charmed blue fire." As soon as he finished speaking, blue flames soared up and enveloped me completely. Intense pain swept through my entire body. I cursed Su Sheng in my head for digging this pit for me. Right then, a terrifying killing intent suddenly erupted from within my body. Immediately after, the domain divine stone, which hadn't reacted for a long time, actually flew out on its own. A suction force emerged out of thin air. The charmed blue fire burning on me was quickly devoured by it. Even after absorbing all that, it still wasn't satisfied. It even began to absorb the flames from the charmed blue flower. After a moment, the domain divine stone was stained with an eerie blue color. Even the killing intent inside the divine stone had changed color. Seeing this, Su Sheng couldn't help but let out a curse. Holy crap. And the quality of this one is incredibly high. Even in our era. I'm starting to suspect if you're the child of destiny for this era. By now, I had absorbed all of the charmed blue fire. My soul strength had also significantly increased. But at the same time, I felt a bit disappointed. Maybe my soul would have become even stronger. The stone spirit saw through my thoughts and said with a chuckle, "Don't act like you're being cheated when you've actually gotten a bargain. The domain divine stone's effect is much greater than you think. Originally, it wouldn't have worked until you reached the level of a super god. But since it just absorbed a massive amount of Mylan fire, it can use part of its power early to refine your soul. Your soul origin will continuously strengthen. It's just a shame about my Mylan flower. I have no idea how many years it'll take to recover." As it spoke, it tossed me another skill divine stone. "You've already received all your clearance rewards. Next, I need you to promise me one thing.